we started with nothing in humble beginnings. They wanna fuck with me now cause I'm winning. Chasing this chicken cause I'm on a mission. I'm known for get money and standing on business. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Keep that shit coming, they know how we living. Come from the struggle, got lost in the hustle. Straight out the mud, no I compliment couples. Chasing big bills just to keep this shit subtle. You ain't on my team if you wasn't in the huddle. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Keep that shit coming, they know that I'm with it. I fit the description, I'm the definition. I'm what they prescribe like she seen a physician. She wanna ride cause she seen how we getting it. Big old booty, she my passenger princess. She like to argue, she don't like to listen. She bougie and toxic, she fine and she picky. Pretty and sedity, she get recognition. Matching nails and toes, man, she always French tip 'em. Parking lot pimping when we in the city. Don't ask her about twine, she twerk on the engine. She eat the dick in the car cause it's tennis. She pay me attention like she get commission. Pimpin' CEO, so I give her the business. She ride on the dick like she doing some fitness. She make the dick disappear like she magician. She like to swallow, man, she love when I finish. Having motion, man, you know I got plenty. Bitches choosing cause they know that I'm winning. Seen some thousands, now I'm out to some millions. So all my houses come with chandelier ceilings. Pillow talking, man, that shit just ain't in me. Keep it pimpin', I can't do no pretending. Jealous hearted, man, you know I ain't with it. Cuffin' hoes, I can't do no commit. No, we started with nothing in humble beginnings. They wanna fuck with me now cause I'm winning. Chasing this chicken cause I'm on a mission. I'm known for get money and standing on business. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Keep that shit coming, they know how we living. Come from the struggle, got lost in the hustle. Straight out the mud, no I compliment couples. Chasing big bills just to keep this shit subtle. You ain't on my team if you wasn't in the huddle. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Chasing this chicken, I ran up a ticket. Keep that shit coming, they know that I'm with it.
Alright, chat, what we doing? I'm a saint, but I sin. I checked in the game to win. I left, she loving me again. I let her cry out the bins and they say time heal. Mine still felt like it was yesterday. How we're moving fast, probably too fast to even catch the play. Spend some night, she pack a bag, right to me, just getting gas. Coming back, I want it bad. I'ma touch it first, eat it last, it's temporary. Holly damn emotion said it's temporary. My pain deeper than the ocean. Temporary feelings mixed with temporary pleasures. All these temporary moments and these temporary treasures. Temporary circumstances to temporary measures. Temporary friends and even temporary schedules. Temporary smiles and temporary goals. Temporary women sliding on temporary poles. Temporary comments and temporary trolls. I just pray that God bless me. Ain't no temporary souls. I'm a saint, but I sin. I checked in the game to win. I left, she loving me again. I let her cry out the bins and they say time heal. Mine still felt like it was yesterday. How we're moving fast, probably too fast to even catch the play. Spend some night, she pack a bag, right to me, just getting gas. Coming back, I want it bad. I'ma touch it first, eat it last, it's temporary. Holly damn emotion said it's temporary. My pain deeper than the ocean. What we doing tonight? Chat y'all lock, man. Let's get some plug emojis in here. Chat y'all lock. What we doing, man? What we doing, chat?
Welcome to the greatest damn show on YouTube.
That's what I'm talking about. What we doing, chat?
Welcome to the greatest damn show on YouTube.
Oh, man. Double tap the screen, shut alive. What we doing tonight, chat? Double tap the screen, shut alive. What we doing tonight, chat? They saying Netanyahu taking shots at Jesus. Trump wants 200 billion for war. We got Tucker Carlson and Professor Jiang sitting down and talking, chat. We're chasing 100 likes. I need everybody to double tap the screen right now or go to the top and hit the like button, man. We got an action-packed episode. I'm locked in, man. I got some food over here. Look, chat, we finna have a good night. What's up, Dorsey H. Buster? What's up, Lowry, Big Niche, man? We do got the best mods on YouTube, chat. Let me give y'all the rundown on what we're gonna cover. We got Trump. He did he took some questions outside of the White House, I believe. Also we have reports of the U.S. sending about 4,500 more troops to the Middle East. The video I got above is crazy. It's a miscellaneous clip. I'll show y'all that next. Also, they're saying a cyber attack happened against American breathalyzer test company, and it locked out drivers across 45 states. So we are seeing cyber attacks. Joe Kent, I believe, Joe Kent did another sit down. Also, they're reporting that the average job opening is now receiving 242 applications, chat. 242 applications for the average job opening, man. They're also reporting that Netanyahu canceled his attendance to the CPAC conference in Hungary. He was the featured speaker. He did not show, chat. He did not show. Also, they're reporting 3,200 ships are trapped in the Persian Gulf right now, and they're not allowing these ships to dock, man. So we'll get into that. 1 trillion wiped out from the stock market today. Tucker Carlson sitting down with Professor Jiang. Pete Hegseth, I don't know what the hell he was talking about. I seen the clip, chat. He was talking about how Iran wants to invest in, missiles and weapons instead of the people. And it's like, isn't this the meeting where you're asking for 200 billion to go to war? Like, what are we talking about? Like, that was kind of redundant. Also, we got Palm Beach Pete, man. He changed his Twitter handle to @NotEpstein, and he has some more things to say. Chat, double tap the screen, shut a live out. We got an action-packed episode. We are going to have a fun night, chat. We're going to have a fun night, chat. Say what's up. I'll be able to say it back if I check the chat and see it, man. Everybody double tap the screen. Let's get to 100 likes off the rip. Hit the like button right now, and let's go on and smash through 100, man. Let's get into it, chat. This video right here, man, wow me out. AI is getting better day by day. So with the Netanyahu clips they were saying was AI, we got the video. I actually seen an angle. I don't know, but I seen an angle to where the reporter was asking questions from the side, and you could see the reporter and Netanyahu in the same clip. But he didn't put the mic to Netanyahu, which was kind of weird. But I don't know, chat. AI is getting crazy. Now, this is a music award ceremony, and watch how crazy this looks, chat. They got, just watch how crazy it looks, chat. I ain't gonna do too much talking.
Welcome back to the Legacy Honor.
Look, they got Pac in there. It's Kobe hosting it. Look.
Welcome back to the Legacy Honors. And now, it's time to present our final award of the night.
And the winner is Michael Jackson.
That's crazy. That's crazy, Chad. Who is all these people? I don't know everybody, Chad. I know Pac and Biggie, of course.
Back to the Legacy Honors. And now,
that's X. Chad, this AI is crazy, Chad. I'm not gonna lie. This AI is getting wild. What's up, Delphine? What's up, Purple Groovy? What's up, OG and H Buster? This AI is getting next level. Like, every day is getting better, bro. They got Kobe hosting this shit in Kobe's voice. You got Nipsey Hussle sitting next to, who was that Nipsey Hussle was sitting next to? Who is this? Bob Marley and Nipsey Hussle are sharing a damn blunt at the awards, chat. You got Kobe hosting it.
Michael Jackson.
You got Michael Jackson getting an award. Prince getting pissed off and walking away. This is wild, chat. This is wild, chat. Rate this AI on a scale of 1 to 10, chat. Give me your rating on what you think. Like, if you could rate this video, I'm going to play it again. Rate this video on 1 to 10.
welcome back to the Legacy Honors. And now, it's time to present our final award of the night.
And the winner is Michael Jackson.
I heard there's royalty in the room tonight.
Bro, I got...
But what's a
Chat, I got my headphones on and they're panning the voices. It's like when I'm hearing the people scream, they got the voices panned in each headphone and everything, chat. You're saying zero, this is AI. I don't care how you personally feel about it. I'm saying like this shit is passable. If you didn't know these people were dead, to a child, chat, to a child who doesn't know these people, they would think this is real. They would think this is current. They would think this is actually going on, and it's only gonna get better. Every single day, this shit is getting better. Listen to Michael Jackson talking.
I heard there's royalty in the room tonight. But what's a prince to a king?
Then he took a shot at Prince on the way out. Chat, this is getting crazy. I'm going to play it one more time, chat, and I want y'all to realize that this is March 20th, 2026, chat. And I'm saying by March 20th, 2027, we won't be able to tell the difference. The only way we would know is if we know that these people are actually gone. In 1 year's time, chat, this will be flawless. Flawless, chat. Flawless.
Welcome back to the Legacy Honors. And now, it's time to present our final award of the night.
Is that Selena, chat? Who is that? Is that Selena? Who is that supposed to be, chat? I think that's Selena. Is that Selena?
Welcome back to the Legacy Honors. And now, it's time to present our final award.
Chat, tell me who that is. Is that Selena?
Of the night.
And the winner is Michael Jackson.
Chat, they're making entire movies like this now. When they say the movie business is done, when they say that this shit is crazy. I just watched a short movie. It was like a 5-minute full movie. It wasn't perfect because it was a little too animated. But whatever this is, whatever they made this on, doesn't even look over animated or over compensated and shit. Like this shit looks crazy, bruh. Crazy. I would watch this movie. If this was a movie right now, chat, and this was like the trailer for a damn deceased celebrity movie, I would watch it. I wouldn't care if it was AI, chat. I'm just being honest. Right now, if I seen this trailer and they said, hey, it's available now on Netflix, I'm finna go watch the shit. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm about to go watch that shit right now.
Welcome back to the Legacy Honors. And now, it's time to present our final award of the night.
Like this is iconic right here. You got Nip, the most famous Crip, smoking with Bob Marley, and they giggling, laughing at Prince. This is crazy, Chad. This is crazy. Look at the pinky ring they got on Nip, bro. Look at the tattoos and the damn braids, bro. Look at the braids on him, man. Chat, look at Bob Marley. Look at the background, chat. Look at the audience behind them, bro. Like, I don't think we're ready for this shit, chat. And I know for sure the adolescents, the kids, for sure is not ready for this shit, bro. They're not ready for this, bro. Jason, this is an AI clip they made of an award show. Thank you, Najee, for the super chat. Hey, how you doing tonight, girl? Hope you having a good night. Just look at the quality of shit. Look at Kobe, bro. They got Kobe's bald fade with no line perfect, bro. That's Kobe, bro. Like that. That's Kobe. The voice is even hitting the same, bro. Now, I don't know about Prince. I didn't watch Prince enough to know if that really looked like Prince, chat. Y'all have to tell me, chat. Is that Prince for sure? I didn't watch enough Prince, man. I wasn't really just a Prince fan. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Like, that looks like X. Like, if that looks like X, it doesn't look like AI. This right here of X does not look like AI, chat. I'm just gonna say it. That shit doesn't look like AI, bro. That shit doesn't look like AI right there, bro. That picture of X, bro, does not look like AI, bro.
Welcome back to the Legacy Honors. And now, it's time to present our final award of the night.
Chat, now I see why the Native Americans didn't want pictures taken. Y'all remember growing up, they always told us that the Native Americans felt that every time their picture was taken, a part of their soul was taken. They was on to something, chat. They was on to something, chat. I'm not gonna lie. Now that I'm seeing this, bruh, and we're talking about ancient civilizations and ancient peoples and shit, man, the Native Americans might have been on to something, man. I'm not gonna lie, chat. Name, image, and likeness is an MFer. Name, image, and likeness is an MFer, bro. The Native Americans might have had this shit right, bro.
Present our final award of the night.
And the winner is Michael Jackson.
Bro, that shit looks natural, bro. Like it's a little glossy right there, like on Nip forehead in this frame is a little glossy. But once they fix that glossy, that little glossy tint, chat, you have to pay for no actors. All you have to do is get licenses. Name, image, and likeness. All you have to do is get licenses for this name, image, and likeness, and you can make a full-fledged movie. A full movie without an actor on the set. Any celebrities you wanted to see work together or do anything together, it's here. It's here. It's here. This shit is crazy, bruh. You said you want to see it. Can you stop talking? No. You can go to Twitter or you can go to YouTube and find the video on your own. Just type in Kobe Bryant AI Awards, man. You can go find this shit on your own. I'm breaking this shit down on what I see. You don't like it? Skedaddle. Sorry. Everybody double tap the screen though, chat. Let's get to 100 likes right quick. Let's smash through the like goal right quick. Let's smash through the like goal before we get to the news.
Welcome back to the Legacy Honors.
But I will play it through one time without stopping it. I'll play it all the way through.
Welcome back to the Legacy Honors. And now, it's time to present our final award of the night.
And the winner is Michael Jackson.
Who is that chat? Oh, I said I was gonna stop it. My bad.
I heard there's royalty in the room tonight. But what's a prince to a king?
Okay, Mike. Chat, who is this? Who is that, chat? Who is that? I don't know who that is, chat. I'm lost. Somebody let me know who that is. Amy Winehouse? Amy Winehouse? Okay. All right, now who is this? Is this a lead? Who is this?
I heard there's room tonight.
Who is that? Who is that? Is that Left Eye? Who is that? Aaliyah? Oh, that's Aaliyah. I thought it was Aaliyah at first. Aaliyah, that's crazy, bro. That's crazy, bro. All right, who are these people right here? Is that who is the white lady? Who is the white lady right here? Taylor said, "What are you 12?" No, I'm a grown ass man. Shut up. Who is this white lady right here? That don't look like Marilyn Monroe. I ain't gonna lie. I was looking for the damn the little dot, the Monroe, man. I didn't think that was Marilyn Monroe because I ain't see the little dot. Who was there beside her? Oh, Whitney Houston? Shit is crazy, bro. All right, that's pocking big. So what they're doing, chat, is they're taking tens of thousands of hours of footage and voice audio and training the AI to spit this model out. And this is crazy. This is crazy. In a year's time, chat, we'll be somewhere else. Let's move on, though, chat. Everybody smash the like button, man. Not Epstein, Palm Beach Pete. He had to he had to come out and say something, chat. I want to know, chat, do y'all think this guy is related to Epstein, man? Like Epstein's doppelganger, man? I don't know, chat. This guy might just be Epstein, bro.
Good morning, everybody. This is Palm Beach Pete from Palm Beach, Florida. I want to thank...
All right, he look like Epstein right there, but when the video first comes on, he kind of don't look like him. I don't know, bro. No, yeah, he looks like Epstein, bro. I'm not gonna lie, bro. He looks like fucking Epstein, bro. Excuse my language, chat. He looks like Epstein, bro.
I'm just me. Good morning, everybody. This is Palm Beach Pete from Palm Beach, Florida. I want to thank everybody for the positive comments I got from saying I'm not Jeffrey Epstein. I'm just Palm Beach Pete. Going to play some tennis today. Going into town. Have lunch. I'm so not Jeffrey Epstein. I'm just me being me, and it's a crazy phenomenon that has went really viral, and I really appreciate all the support. And just want to reiterate, I'm Peter from Palm Beach. Have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. He's a very bad person, what he did, obviously, and he is dead, and I'm alive.
And he is dead, and I'm alive. Well, that's debatable, Palm Beach Pete. That's debatable, Palm Beach Pete. I'm trying to make the boxes smaller in OBS. Like, I don't know. I don't like when it takes up the whole screen. It's kind of crazy. All right, let's get into some of the news, chat. Let's get into some of the news before we get into that BB not going to
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it.
Imagine not having mother freaking ads. It's crazy.
CNN has learned that the U.S. military is sending thousands of additional Marines and sailors to the Middle East. This comes just a day after President Trump said this about deploying more troops to the region.
No, I'm not putting troops anywhere. If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you, but I'm not putting troops.
It also comes just hours after President Trump shared on Truth Social that the fight to stop nuclear-powered Iran is, quote, militarily won. CNN national security reporter Haley Britsky joins us now. Haley, what's the latest? What are you learning?
Yeah, so Boris, we're learning that the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit off the West Coast is heading towards the region now. This is the second MEU going towards the Middle East. The 31st has already left.
So it's supposed to be 3 ships, 4,500 more Marines, I believe, and soldiers as well. Everybody hit the like button, chat. We have to get to the like goal, man. If we're gonna have a good night and stay on a long time, smash the like button. Go to the top of the screen. If you had a good day today, press 1, man. We gotta get through that like goal.
From the Pacific going towards the region. We don't quite know when it'll get there, of course, what exactly it will do. We're still asking if it will stay in the region, if the military will have 2 of these Marine rapid response forces there. Certainly it raises questions about boots on the ground options, as that's the first thing people think of when they think of these MEUs. But these units are really kind of the Swiss Army knives of the Marines and of the military. They can provide aviation logistics support, so they provide commanders a lot of options. A lot we still don't know about this deployment, but it certainly provides a lot of options to Admiral Bradley Cooper of CENTCOM.
It also raises questions about how long this engagement might go. We heard President Trump say it would be a matter of weeks. Now there are questions about whether this is going to be prolonged.
That's right. I mean, we still don't know how long this is going to go. We hear Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth saying it could be 4 weeks, it could be 5 weeks, it could be 3 weeks. Obviously, we're nearing the 4th week point at this point. But they keep saying, we keep hearing from these senior officials that, as we just heard from the president, this is essentially won, that the conflict is, there's fewer targets to hit. But still, the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. We just saw.
Yes, it is effectively closed, and they're charging $2 million for safe passage, Chad. This is what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz right now that people really aren't talking about. This was a really good read. Everybody hit the like button. It's saying that 3,200 ships are trapped in the Persian Gulf right now. Crews are running out of drinking water. One ship called local port authority and begged for permission to dock so they could get water, and they were denied. So these aren't military ships, they're commercial vessels, oil, grain, electronics, civilian crew. They stranded. No supplies, no way out. They're saying there's 3,200 ships that are stuck, crews running out of water, ports not letting them dock, and it's multiple ships reporting the same situation. They're saying that the Suez Canal crisis in 2021 blocked 400 ships. This is 8 times worse, and no one's talking about it. So yeah, they're saying that if these ships do get abandoned, it could cause more of an environmental hazard because you got fuel, cargo, chemicals, and all of that shit just sitting there. So they're saying that this is actually a verified humanitarian crisis. They're calling it a verified humanitarian crisis.
Saw yesterday an F-35, U.S. F-35 had to make an emergency landing after sources say it was believed to be hit by Iranian fire. So there's certainly a lot still happening on the ground here, and these units moving in will just provide more options for what the president decides to do next.
Haley Britsky, thanks so much for that reporting.
CNN's Kevin Liptak joins me from the White House. And Kevin, let me go to you first. And more Marines, like we were saying, making their way to the Middle East as administration, of course, pushes, we've been talking about, for extra funding, some $200 billion.
You said America about to be the biggest pirates in history. It don't look like it's going to be nothing left to pillage, man. They're blowing up the oil. They're blowing up the natural gas. They're blocking off trade routes. It's not going to be, what do you mean? It's not going to be anything left to pillage over there. It's looking like it might be over. Najee, you said soon we will be the AI of troops. The AI troops are already there. I believe in Russia, Ukraine, they've already put robots. They've already put some robots on the field in a couple of these conflicts that are going on. So yes, it's right around. It's already being rolled out, and it's gonna be widely spread very soon.
Bring us up to date, the very latest. What do we know, first of all, about this deployment?
Right, and this will be the second, what they call a Marine Expeditionary Unit that's now headed towards the Middle East. There is another one that is deploying from Asia and heading in that direction. So it will bring...
Chat, did you see the ship? Was that a French ship? It was one ship from across the pond that they were sending to, I believe, to the Middle East. And they got doxxed because one of their sailors, somebody on board, had an app that tracked his movements, like of when he was running, like his heart rate and how much he walked. He had an app, and they used that app to track the movements of the boat through I believe the Atlantic Ocean, which was wild to me, bro. I'm talking about like operational security at zero, bro. Like anybody in the world could have tracked this ship.
Bring the total number of Marines tasked to these units to about 4,500, and it will add to the about 50,000 American troops that are already in the Middle East. Now, what exactly these Marines will be tasked with, it's not clear. And it comes, of course, as the president does seem to be weighing whether to order a ground operation inside Iran, whether it's to secure Karg Island, that very critical area that the...
You said Japan opened up Hormuz for their ships? They're saying that anything going through the Strait of Hormuz right now is pretty much paying Iran $2 million. They're saying Russia's making $500 million extra a day off this conflict. Iran's charging $2 million a pop to come through, to cross the road, basically, man. You want to come outside, man, it's $2 million a pop you want to come through here. So I don't know what you mean about Japan opening up anything, man. If something's going on, it's looking like they're paying to play.
Administration thinks would put pressure on the Iranian regime, or to go into Iran to try and retrieve some of the highly...
Okay, can you repeat the question? Says it was a nuclear warship and the sailor uploaded his workout info to the public app forum in which it was tracked. See, that's crazy, chat. A civilian app just was able to track a nuclear warship. Do we not understand how big that is, chat? This is crazy. Think about the millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars they spend for security and privacy, and a damn app, a public app, just exposed all of that. It's crazy.
Enriched nuclear material that is buried far underground. That is certainly something that those Marines could be doing, but it is not necessarily what they're going to be doing. They also have tasks like aviation support, logistics support, all of these other areas that they could potentially be ordered up to do once they arrive. But it all seems to be demonstrating that the president is reinforcing the American troop posture in the region as this war grinds on. You know, we're about to.
Yeah, that's a situation to where, you know, it's OPSEC. So they'll probably take everybody's devices at that point. We have a ship with nuclear capabilities going through the ocean and was just exposed because of a civilian app, probably a watch or a little Fitbit or something tracking some shit. Man, I wouldn't be surprised if they took every electronic off the damn boat, man. Everybody turn your phones in, put them in a box, all the Apple Watches and Fitbits and shit, man. Everybody's gonna be mad at that guy.
To enter the fourth week of this conflict. The president and other administration officials have said that it could last between 4 and 6 weeks. So we are in about a week's time.
You said it was French. Yeah, that's Macron. So we know Macron said that they're gonna be rebuilding their nuclear arsenal and they're not gonna publicly disclose it to anybody. Well, it look, you know, then we see that the ship movements were exposed. Chat, we have to hit the like goal. If everybody hits the like button right now, we'll smash through it. We're gonna have a good night. Double tap the screen or go to the top and hit the 3 dots, man. Please support the channel for free. We're also 25 subscribers away from the next sub goal, man.
Time nearing the window when, according to the administration's own estimates, it could be winding down. But certainly this decision to send these troops into the region suggests that it may not be ending anytime quickly.
The president said yesterday he's not going to have boots on the ground. He also said, though, that he would not tell the media if he was going to do that. Do you think that we'll end up seeing American military on the ground in Iran, including special operations forces?
Well, first of all, I would never take that option off the table. And that's always been my recommendation from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. Don't take that option off the table. You never know what's going to happen, and you want to have that flexibility. With regard to that, you know, I've commented before that I think, you know, some type of large-scale operation into the internal part of Iran, going after a nuclear site to secure enrichment material, would be very complicated, very risky. And would you know, be a very difficult mission. Now, something short of that, where you're trying to seize Karg Island as a leverage point against the Iranians, more doable. It would require more Marines than we have now, or a broader set of service members. But I would never take that option off the table. And you mentioned special operations forces. Look, we use them for various means. It could be a type of raid, or it could be to train militia inside the country. So again, I think that is a tool that every president should retain.
So was that Hezbollah that came out yesterday and pledged their support for Iran? Was that Hezbollah leader that came out yesterday? I'm going to look it up.
Do you think that's what the administration is doing with these more warships and Marines heading to the area? What does that signal to you?
I would certainly tee up options for the president. I think the job of the Secretary of Defense, of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is to give the president options, and the more the better. The more room he can have to make a decision with regard to which way to go, depending on either a policy choice or in reaction to what the Iranians are doing or threatening. And so again, I would keep that, not only keep that card on the table, I would make sure I have the cards available to me in case I want to use them, because otherwise it takes a long time to get these forces in place. You know, the president spoke, or DOD mentioned last week about sending the Marines out of the Pacific, and they're still en route, right? They were recently spotted off of Singapore. So it's
all right, here it goes right here. It was the Houthis. All right, the Houthi leaders tell supporters that turning a blind eye offers no protection as war appears to widen. As the war on Iran continues. So yeah, he dropped the whole video. So it was the Houthis leader.
It's going to take another week or so for them to get to the region. So you want to make sure you have those tools in place so that if you need to use them, want to use them, they're available.
Secretary Mark Esper, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Bjorn.
CNN is learning that thousands more U.S. Marines and sailors are heading toward the Middle East just one day after President Trump downplayed deployment reports, saying, quote, "I'm not putting troops anywhere," though he did say that if he were to, he would not share that with the public. The deployment also happening just hours after the president shared on his Truth Social account that the fight to stop a nuclear-powered Iran has been militarily won. CNN senior national security reporter Zach Cohen has our new reporting. And Zach, on that question of the nuclear capability of Iran being militarily won, isn't their enriched uranium believed to be stored hundreds of feet underground, buried under sand?
Yeah, Boris, that is certainly the understanding of the U.S. intelligence community, and it's a problem we know the Trump administration has been.
So how are they gonna get it buried up from under the ground if they don't surrender it? That's the question. How are they gonna get it from buried under the ground if they don't surrender it, man? Oh, we're in for a long ride, chat, but we're not at 100 likes yet. We have to get to 100 likes. There's 700 people in here, and if everybody hits the like button, we'll smash through the like goal, and we'll get on and have a good night, man. What's up? What's up, man? It's for the free, chat. Everybody double tap the screen or hit the like button at the top, man. But he's saying that it's buried under the ground in the sand. Oh my gosh, chat, this is not good.
Been grappling with and weighing the possibility of you.
And then Trump just said he didn't want a ceasefire. We're gonna watch what Trump said today right after this. And I think I seen a clip where Trump said he didn't want a ceasefire. Like F all that ceasefire shit, man.
Using U.S. Special Forces potentially to try to essentially go in there and extract or destroy the uranium that is believed to be deep underground at one of those facilities that was hit last year. But again, to the president's comments yesterday about sending additional troops to the region, we're learning that thousands more Marines are going to be deployed to the Middle East here in the near term, having their deployments accelerated. Now, one Marine Expeditionary Unit was already on the way to the Middle East. These are units that are really the Swiss Army knife of military capability. They're made up of about 2,200 sailors and Marines. But we're learning now that they're going to send potentially a second Marine Expeditionary Unit to the Middle East. This unit was intended initially to go and deploy to the Indo-Pacific region, but their timeline has now been moved up, and they're going to be traveling to the Middle East, according to two sources familiar with the plans. And so it does raise questions about what is the Trump administration's timeline for bringing an end to this conflict, and what objectives do they need to accomplish before they can do so.
To that point, you have this announcement of a deployment, and then also what is potentially going to be a $200 billion request for supplemental funding from Congress. How does the administration square that with what Trump has been saying about this coming to a close relatively quickly?
Chat, do you think we should just pull out of the Middle East, or should we send 200 billion more? Chat, let me know what you think in the chat, man. Should we send more or pull out, man? No diddy. Should we send more or pull out, man? 200 billion more, or should we, reevaluate the situation?
Yeah, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was asked about that additional request for $200 billion for the Pentagon yesterday, and he said, quote, "It takes money to kill bad guys," and that was sort of his explanation for why the Pentagon is seeking more funding when they've already spent billions of dollars over the last for some weeks of this conflict. We know that the first week of the military operations against Iran cost roughly $11 billion, and estimates for the totality of the war so far are hovering around $20 billion. So some of this $200 billion request, as we understand it, would go towards addressing the expenditures that have been spent so far during the conflict. But there's also speculation and concern that the Pentagon may try to also get funding for other priorities as part of this additional request. That's something that is going to raise a lot of eyebrows on Capitol Hill, as lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are starting to really push the administration to come out and explain their reasoning and their objectives for the Iran conflict. And they haven't even asked Congress to vote on this conflict yet. So a lot of questions as to whether or not this will ultimately come to pass. But the Pentagon is seeking additional funding, and we are seeing more Marines sent to the region.
Zach Cohen, thanks so much for that reporting.
Crazy, Chad. Crazy. I also seen in that hearing that the Army generals who was that, Elizabeth Warren questioned him, the Army general. She was like, if you got some illegal orders, would you, let us know? He was like, I will report it to my proper chain of command. And he wasn't budging on that. He said that like 4 times, no matter how she asked the question.
But I'm not surprised. Terrible.
You have vowed strong action in the past. What message would you send?
Well, we've been hitting them awfully hard. I mean, I don't know if you can possibly get hit harder, but these are thugs and animals and horrible people. But you can't hit anybody harder than we've hit them. But I'm not surprised. They executed 3 young people for protesting.
And do you plan to escort those ships through the Strait of Hormuz with or without allies?
We're doing very well there. We're doing very well overall. We don't use the strait. The United States, we don't need it. Europe needs it. Korea, Japan, China, a lot of other people. So they'll have to get involved a little bit on that one.
Hey, Trump doesn't give a damn, chat. Listen, hey, we don't need it. We don't need the Strait of Hormuz. Russia, China, Europe, they need it. Japan, they'll be starving, cold, everything will collapse over there. But we're good. We're America. We're good. Trump is crazy with the way he just said that shit, bro. But it's true. I'm just gonna be honest. It's true. They will be affected a lot more, a lot sooner than we would in America. Our gas will go through the roof, but as far as a real energy crisis to where we can't power our homes or shit like that, we'll just have to be able to pay for it. If we could pay for it, we'll be able to power it.
Do you still want South Korea support the United States?
Now, what about it?
Do you still want South Korea support?
Well, I love South Korea. We have a great relationship with South Korea.
Yeah, Japan said they have 8 months. H-Buster, you said y'all will be okay. Well, Japan says that they have about 8 months of reserves left. If the Strait of Hormuz doesn't open up, they have about 8 months of reserves left. Iran's charging 200. I think they're charging $2 million per vessel, man. $2 million to bring that thing through here.
We're helping South Korea a lot.
Mr. President, do you think Israel will be ready to end the war when they're ready?
I think so.
Mr. President.
The relationship's a very good one. I think so.
Mr. President.
We want more or less similar things.
Not me. You said it takes billions to refit our refineries. Well, Trump already commissioned one huge oil refinery. I believe it's supposed to be in like Brownsville or Browns, just somewhere in Texas on the Gulf of America, like way down by the bottom. He just commissioned it. It's supposed to be $300 billion, a $300 billion oil refinery, the first one that's being built in over 50 years. So it will probably take a while, but the ball is rolling. We can't say the ball is rolling.
What we want victory, both of us, and that's what we've got.
Mr. President, what's your plan for Cog Island, Mr. President? What's your plan for Cog Island?
I may have a plan or I may not, but how would I ever say that to a reporter? If I said that to a reporter, Marco would say, please, sir, let's bring you over to the helicopter immediately, right? No, I can't tell you that.
Mr. President,
it's certainly a place that's people are talking about, but I can't say.
Yeah. Are you ruling out troops there,
Operation Epic Fury affect talks with Russia on Ukraine?
What about it?
Are the talks on back burner right now because of
No, we're talking about it. I think it'll get done.
Well, when do you expect the next round of talks to take place?
They take place almost every day. We're making a lot of progress.
Mr. President, you said that the war was militarily won in Iran.
Hey, listen, y'all, we got us one. Blaine says, I'm not going to watch this channel ever again because you guys are entertaining the disgusting ruling class of the nation and it's all stupidity. Stop voting completely and stop talking political. How about this, Blaine? How about you get my foot out your ass on your way out the door, because you won't be allowed back over here. You don't got to worry about ever watching me again, ever seeing me again. Everybody tell Blaine good night, goodbye, and good riddance. We'll see you again. Never, Blaine. Nobody come to see you older. Nobody give a damn if Blaine watches us, man.
What did you mean by that? You said the war was militarily won in Iran. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I think we've won. We've knocked out their Navy, their Air Force. We've knocked out their anti-aircraft. We've knocked out everything. We're roaming free. from a military standpoint, all they're doing is clogging up the strait. But from a military standpoint, they're finished.
So how much longer should the American people expect this to go?
You said opening the Strait of Hormuz is a simple military maneuver.
Very simple.
Yeah, but what did you mean by that?
It's a simple military maneuver. It's relatively safe, but you need a lot of help in the sense of.
That's a good comment. Chunky says, this isn't about oil. America has enough to last 200 years. This is about opening trade routes, Belt and Road Initiative, Golden Corridor, Global South Trade and Africa route. It's about trading and money. That's a nice take right there, Chucky. That's a nice take. See, those are the takes that add value to the channel. When y'all come in here and troll or just say whatever, I mean, that's cool too. Like, I mean, I like interaction, but Chucky came in and added some damn value. Like, that's a comment that might catch my eye. Like, damn, let me read this.
You need chips, you need volume. And NATO could help us, but they so far haven't had the courage to do so. And others could help us, but, you know, we don't use it. You know, at a certain point, it'll open itself at a certain point. But we've defeated the enemy, and they are an enemy. They're a sick group of people. The leadership is gone, the Navy is gone, the Air Force is gone, the anti-aircraft equipment that they have, the radar they have is all gone. Everything's gone. The strait itself, the actual strait, how are you? The strait itself is, we're doing a good job, but it would be nice if the countries, including China, if the countries that use it, China uses it 90% of their energy. Japan is 95% of the energy. It would be nice if those countries would get involved.
But that's the thing, China still hasn't really released official comment. Because China's in a position to where if they can hold out, they can. If they can't, then they'll just have to act on it. But officially, China hasn't given Trump a response on whether they're going to help out or not. So a lot of places said no, flat out no. China hasn't given a response. I don't know how this is going to go.
I thought she did a good job yesterday.
The American agents in Europe, Lindsey Graham has asked for you to reconsider the American bases in Spain, in Germany, after what they have done in the case of manufacturing.
Well, it deserves. He's right about asking that, and I think NATO's gone down a long way because they haven't. I mean, they should be helping with the strait. They get much of their energy from the strait.
So this is the thing. So we heard Bulletproof, you know what I'm saying, touting that, you know, NATO's up to 5% spending and all of that shit, man. Chat, I didn't know that shit wasn't like kicking in till 2035. So all of the extra NATO spending and shit, man, like it's supposed to be on the way, but it's just not here yet, man. I don't think they've reached the 2% that they were supposed to be at yet. Let's just be honest, man. Let's be honest, Trump. What are we talking about here? Chat, double tap the screen, hit the like button, man. We're about 20 likes away from 150 likes. Let's hit this next like goal so we can hang out, have a good time, man. We're 20 likes away. Double tap the screen, shut the live out. We're 15 subscribers away. We go live every single night talking politics, current events, and entertainment, man.
But Lindsey Graham said that, and don't forget, he was a big NATO guy for a while, and now he's not. And a lot of senators in Congress said they were big. They're very upset with the fact that NATO has done nothing.
Yes, 2030 is right around the corner, but I don't think the 5% was supposed to be until 2035, actually. So that's like midway through the 2030s. And Lori said, what about the primaries coming up? I don't know, Chad, because this is how out of touch Trump is right now, Chad. I'm just gonna be honest with you. He's talking about he has 100% support of the war. 100% support of the war, right? He has 100% MAGA support of the war. That means he don't give a fuck about nobody else. When he says 100%, man, that's people that's already was gonna be over there. He's letting you know, like, he don't give a fuck about anything else, man. It's 100%.
hopefully on call for a ceasefire fully until we open dialogue. What do you say about Pope?
Well, look, we can have dialogue, but I don't want to do a ceasefire. You know, you don't do a ceasefire when you're literally obliterating the other side. They don't have a Navy. They don't have an Air Force. They don't have any equipment. They don't have any spotters. They don't have anti-aircraft. They don't have radar. And their leaders have all been killed.
That's the thing. You said, yes, we got, if they leave Hormuz, if we leave Iran, Hormuz won't automatically open either. We're in a tough spot. Correct. I mean, Iran's getting 2 million a ship. Why would it just open back up? They're getting 2 million a ship, man. It's like, hey, they playing with the house's money right now. Playing with the house's money. But it's kind of like Trump's already kind of leaning into it. You heard what he said, like, hey, look, we don't use the Strait of Hormuz. So that's kind of letting the other world leaders know that, hey, I can take a stance and just say, fuck this, and let y'all pay $2 million a ship for safe passage until a new deal is struck or whatever. And now they're already seeing that they can tax you $2 million per ship, so the price might be kind of high. Just like what did he tell Zelensky? You can fight your little heart out, man. Shit, it's about over with. You can fight your little heart out, man. Listen, I think Trump might say fuck all that shit.
Every level. We're not looking to do that.
Oh, you said so Candace Tucker, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Nick don't count? No, they don't count. Trump is not acknowledging them as MAGA. You remember it's Marjorie Taylor Greene now. She's not MAGA. If you don't support what's going on, if you question the Epstein files, you're not MAGA. You don't remember that? We're still talking about the Epstein files. Remember Pam Bondi? The Dow Jones is 50,000. The Dow Jones is 50,000, man. Come on, Chad. We just lost $1 trillion in the markets today. $1 trillion. What are we talking about here, man? No, they're not MAGA. To answer your question, Christine, no. Candace, Tucker, MTG, and Nick Fuentes are not MAGA in when they're counting these polls. Hell no.
It was a really good, tough cookie. Didn't want to fight him. He was a tough, great guy, and he was a great supporter. Wow, that's good man. So, I was
I can't even hear the damn interview, Chad. All right, let's get into that Tucker Carlson and Professor Jiang for a minute, Chad. I don't want to sit there and listen to P. Hegseth. I'm not gonna lie, Chad. I'm not trying to hear Hegseth, bro. Not right now. Not right now, Chad. Oh, while I pull this up, Chad, the White House is pushing a proposal through that said states should not be permitted to regulate AI development. It also says that states should not be able to penalize AI companies when people break the law using their models. So they're giving the AI companies total immunity, and they're saying the states can't do anything about it, any regulation. Just watch out. It's crazy. Shit is crazy.
Professor, thank you very much for doing this. We've never met. I don't know a great deal about you, but I have seen a number of your videos in which you make remarkably accurate predictions. So that's what I know about you, and I'm impressed by that, by your ability to call events before they happen. So with that in mind, let me ask you, where do you think this war in Iran is going? How will it be resolved, and what are the consequences likely to be?
Well, thanks so much for inviting me, Tucker. I'm a huge fan. I've been admiring your work for a number of years now.
Thank you.
So I think that this war in Iran will be very similar to the war in Ukraine, meaning that this will be drawn out, be a war of attrition. Neither side will concede defeat, even though it is in their best interest to reach a ceasefire.
Chat, I'm just gonna be honest. Trump said no ceasefires today, and if this is long and drawn out, chat, I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's not gonna be good, man. This is like a controlled demolition, man. We have too much going on right now as a country, chat. I'm talking about new builders have already cut 100,000 off the homes. Trump's floating 50-year mortgages. Gas has already hit $4. We lost $1 trillion in the market today. Gas gets high. Everybody that has a second job doing ride sharing or a delivery app, their profits are squeezed. They're saying the average job opening is getting 247 applicants right now. Like, if this is long and drawn out, chat, we're fucked. I'm just gonna say it, man. I'm sorry, bro. We're fucked.
And this will have dramatic consequences on the global economy. And this war could drag on for years and years. Already, we're seeing major repercussions on the global economy in that flights are being canceled. In Southeast Asia, they ran out of fuel, so they're asking people to stay at home. And in a few more months, experts are predicting a food shortage, meaning that nations will be forced into food rationing. And today, there's a major escalation in that the
Chat was crazy. He's saying nations will begin to start food rationing. So we're not going to take everything this guy says that, just that's truth. But let's think about that. Nations start food rationing, right? They cut off USAID. All of that shit that was going over there to trade and feed the other countries and shit. Man, USAID is over with, man. That shit is crazy to think about.
The Israelis struck the largest gas field in Iran, and Iran retaliated by attacking energy infrastructure of the GCC. And Iran has stated that its purpose, its goal, its strategy is to move oil to $200 a barrel, which will have a really significant impact on the global economy because the entire global economy is based on access to cheap energy. So unfortunately, I think that we can expect this war to drag on for years and years. Eventually, America will send in ground troops. Eventually, the Strait of Hormuz will be contested. Eventually, this will spread all across the world. Eventually, other nations will be drawn.
So far, in predicting the war, Professor Jiang has been, for the most part, pretty accurate. Not everything he said has happened, but a lot of the things he's predicted did happen. The water treatment facilities, the oil infrastructure, the total war where they're gonna, hospitals and all of that shit. Like, a lot of his predictions have rang true thus far. It's a couple things that haven't happened yet that he said would happen at this point, but it hasn't happened yet. I think he predicted ground troops already.
On in. So Saudi Arabia is thinking about declaring war on Iran, and Saudi Arabia.
Oh, it was the draft. That's what it was. The draft. I think we're far. I think we're pretty far from the draft, but he's predicting the draft, and I don't know, Chad. If this lasts a year, 2 years. Do y'all think it could be a draft? He's saying that he's predicting a draft, and he's predicting the draft to lead to not quite a civil war in America, but more like damn near civil war. Like the people aren't gonna be going for that shit, is what he's saying. And that's why they already have the National Guard ready to be deployed to all cities, I think in April. I think by April they're supposed to have the National Guard ready to be deployed to all cities, and that's why he's predicting the draft.
It has a mutual defense pact with Pakistan, so Pakistan will be drawn into this war. So things are spiraling out of control, and just recently, Ali.
But we see when he says that he believes it'll be like Ukraine, that even goes to the point of the draft. Like, we see these videos of the Ukraine, they're out there snatching people. They're going to homes or catching people on the way out of their house and just literally look like they kidnapping them. You know what I'm saying? Like, snatching them up, putting them in the, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you finna go fight in this war. Oh, you finna go fight in this war. You, your family, everybody's in trouble. They doing shit like that right now.
Larajini, who is the de facto head of the Iranian war effort, was assassinated. And he was a pragmatic elder statesman in Iran who had the authority to negotiate a
Hey, chat, we're 25 likes away from the next like goal. I need everybody to hit the like button right now for me, or go to the top and hit the like button with 3 dots or whatever. We have to hit this next like goal, and we're 25 subscribers away from the next sub goal, man. We go live every single day.
ceasefire. Now that he's gone, there really is no more off-ramp. So both sides are committed to a long war of attrition, and the consequences for the entire global economy are quite dire.
That is, I wouldn't say that's the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario would include a nuclear strike by one or more actors and the destruction of the Aqsa Mosque complex in Jerusalem, which would spark a religious war. So that's as bad as it could get, but you've just described one step before the worst, which is protracted, destructive, impossible to stop. So my question is, because there are so many global players, big global players, the US and China, I think, who would be hurt by this, why is there not an incentive to get it settled quickly, and why can't that happen?
Right. So once this war starts, it achieves a momentum and a logic of its own. So the United States doesn't really have an off-ramp, meaning that if it tries to negotiate a ceasefire with Iran, Iran would ask for reparations, about $1 trillion, basically. It would ask for the United States to leave the Middle East permanently.
Is that justified, chat? I do believe Iran will ask for reparations. Who just asked for the reparations? I forgot. It was another country that immediately asked for reparations last year. I believe they asked for some crazy amount of reparations. But do you think Iran will ask for $1 trillion in reparations? We're not. Do you think they deserve it? Is $1 trillion in reparations warranted to Iran? Yes or no, chat? Is $1 trillion in reparations warranted to Iran?
To ensure its long-term survival. If the United States were to do that, then the GCC nations would collectively become client states of Iran, because only Iran can guarantee their safety, as well as use of the Strait of Hormuz. The GCC is the basis of the petrodollar. So what the GCC does is it sells oil in US dollars and then recycles this money back into the American economy. So if the GCC were to abandon the petrodollar, then this would have severe repercussions on the American economy. Also, there'd be a chain reaction in that Japan and South Korea would look at what's happened in the Middle East and decide that the United States can no longer guarantee their safety. So they would have to remilitarize, and they would have to spend all the resources on adapting to the possible China threat.
You said if people can't purchase gas to go to, I'm not gonna lie, gas stations were running out of gas around me today. You know, we got to look at other countries like Sri Lanka. Remember their currency got so inflated they couldn't only what were they calling that? Important vehicles. What is that? You know, like buses and shit. Those were the only things that could get gas. Like Sri Lanka was going through it. We also just got reports yesterday that was it Thailand or one of those countries, they can't buy any jet fuel. They're not getting any jet fuel over there. So it's the shortages are coming.
And then you have Europe.
Maybe
and
not
Europe
to us.
Would look at what happened in the GCC as well as in Southeast Asia, and they would be like, why are we fighting Russia? Wouldn't it be in our best interest to negotiate a peace treaty with Russia as soon as possible? What this would mean the collapse of the US dollar as a global reserve currency. Remember that America is sitting on $39 trillion in.
See, this is the thing. You guys are saying EV looks real nice, and EVs are, but that's still another trap, because all the cars made after 2027, they have to come with a facial recognition feature. So like if you're getting sleepy or tired, or if some shit's going on, maybe you play with your nose a little bit in the car, or smoke a little bit of this in the car or something, man, they gonna shut that down. They go after 2027, they already signed it in, man. These cars are gonna be made with functions, facial recognition, and they gonna shut that down, man. Yeah, all right, Chad.
Debt. And
That's why I got a few old schools, man. I got some old schools I will never give up.
so the American economy is a Ponzi scheme that relies on
Go look up the Cash for the Clunkers conspiracy, Chad, where they said, remember Cash for Clunkers, where they was giving you all the cars and people was scrapping their cars? What did they do to all the engines? They put that silicone in the engine so the engine would seize. You couldn't sell the engine. You couldn't do nothing with the engine, man. It's just been playing for a long time, bro. Shit's been playing for a long time.
On foreign nations to continually buy US dollars. So the US economy would not be able to withstand essentially American withdrawal from the Middle East. So the Americans are stuck where they are right now, unfortunately.
What is the Chinese perspective on this? I mean, it seems like China has an interest in peace in the Persian Gulf with those 7 oil-producing countries. Why wouldn't China step in and try and settle this?
So,
oh, you Nick nobody. You said you don't want to go to Mars. Oh, you must have heard. Mars was never for us, man. They were supposed to be using these surrogates, the robot surrogates, to clone people to populate Mars. Mars was never for us. If you listen to what Elon says, he says Mars is important for the existence of humanity, for the existence of human race. He never said he was finna take our black ass up there, man. Our human ass up there, man. They need supply shit to get up there. Once they can supply the shit with the robots and the AIs, and then they send the surrogates up there, man, they don't clone motherfucker. It might be a few people to go up there, but by far and large, man, Mars is not for us, man. That Mars shit was never meant for us.
Both the United States and China benefit from the status quo. And China has a vested interest in seeing a very quick solution to this war in the Middle East. China imports about 40% of its energy needs from the GCC. So not just Iranian oil, but also Qatari natural gas.
Right.
So as you point out, China very much wants to see, as soon as possible, a ceasefire. Unfortunately, it is the nature of the Chinese.
So listen, you see Professor Jiang is saying China wants a ceasefire. Now, we know today Trump came out and said there will be no ceasefire. So Trump's is putting the pedal to the metal, man. He's putting his foot on the back of what is his name? Chi. No, not, yeah, is it Chi? Yeah, it is Chi. He's putting his foot on the back of Chi like, look, man, y'all need this shit. That's why he came out and said no ceasefire, and he came out and said, we don't need the Strait of Hormuz. Y'all are going to have to help, man. We don't need the Strait of Hormuz, man. No ceasefire, man, and y'all need to bring your ass on. Hit the like button, chat, man. We need to get 25 likes in here right quick, and we need 25 new subscribers. We go live every single day over here as long as we hitting those like goals, man. Thank you, chat.
Government not to interfere in foreign affairs. China doesn't really have a geopolitical framework, a grand strategy. It really believes in global trade. And it doesn't really have a framework for how to resolve armed conflict. And so Chinese policymakers are really stuck. And in fact, Chinese policymakers have come out publicly saying that they would like the carnage, the violence in the Middle East to stop as soon as possible, and for the Strait of Hormuz to open up. But unfortunately, as I pointed out previously, when a war starts, it achieves a momentum and a logic of its own. And it's very hard to stop a war once it starts.
So if your prediction is correct, and I pray that it's not, and I'm sure you do too, hope that you're wrong, but if you're not wrong,
yes,
and this continues to grind in the way that it is now, destroying energy infrastructure, just really destroying the civilizations of the region and Iran and the GCC.
Yes, they need those people to move around, man. They need those people to move around for whatever's gonna go on. That's why I think this conflict will go on a long time. Because if we pull out, we know that Iran is gonna, pretty much be big dogs over there. This Pax Islamica, we know they got Iran, Iraq. They're both Shia Muslim countries. They're surrounded by Sunni Muslim countries, but they just got America to get on down. Then we know if they purge everything, turn that shit to a parking lot, man. Destroy all the energy infrastructure. They're saying that the shit oil refinery is getting blown up now. It's raining acid rain, and these people will maybe get cancers over the next 10 to 20 years. They're displacing millions of people. We just seen the reporter in Lebanon almost get hit with an airstrike because he's saying 1 million people are displaced. It's going on right now, Chad. It's going on. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
What does that look like in, say, 2 years globally? What's the effect on the global economy?
Right. So,
hold on, Chad. We got us one. The bodega value core business 9684. Listen, little 9684 said, "What do you know, idiot? You hardly know the hood. I know enough to know that I need to research, and that's what we come on here and do every fucking night, like we have for 2 years. How about this, little 9684? You got one more time to speak without being spoken to, and your ass is up out of here, man. Belt the ass like I'm your daddy, man. That's what I know."
this war, it will accelerate 3 major trends. And nations will have to adapt to a new reality in which energy is no longer cheap and accessible. The first major trend is deindustrialization, meaning that right now you just have too many people living in cities. And you can do that as long as you can import cheap energy and cheap food. But when cheap energy and cheap food are gone, then you need people to work the fields, to grow food for your economy. So you have to deindustrialize and reduce your energy dependence. Okay, that's one major trend that we should see very soon. Second major trend we should see is remilitarization, in that before we had Pax Americana, where America basically guaranteed global peace. And America...
All right, Chad, we got us another one, man. Tell little 9684 have a good night, man. We won't see him in here again. He doesn't know how to act. If I had a disciplinary referral right now, I would write his ass up, man. So 9684, we'll see you in here. Never, man. You're uninvited. You can't come to the barbecue. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. We don't have any plain lays for you. You can have a bottle of water, because I know it's gonna be a long, lonely walk home, man. Good night, 9684. The fuck out, man. We're gonna play that shit over here, chat.
Basically prevented nations from going to war against each other. So, for example, Trump brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan because these two nations have much hostilities against each other. But now that America no longer has the aura of invincibility and ability, now that the American military does not come across as almighty, then America doesn't have the power to stop kids from attacking each other on the playground anymore. So nations have to remilitarize.
Look, we got another one, Chad. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. We're going to get the trolls out, and then we're going to get to the show. But this is entertainment for me. Look, Diesel says, "Boy, you're acting PUSSY over comments." Listen here, Diesel. No, what I'm doing is having fun. I'm entertaining my chat. This is not your regular boring C-SPAN shit. I will cuss your ass out in here and make you feel this big. Go to bed mad. I'm talking about tossing and turning and waking up with this face on your mind. Making a new account to come in here and troll, chat. I'm one of those, man. I've been doing this, man. It's fun to me. Hey, so Diesel, your ass got one more time to get out of line. And we're going to pack you up.
Especially nations like Japan, which before relied too heavily on American military protection. Okay, so that's number two, the remilitarization of the world. And the third major trend we should see is mercantilism, meaning that now that global trade is disrupted, nations, especially advanced industrial nations such as Japan and Germany, they need to create their own independent, self-sufficient supply chains. Fortunately, America doesn't have this issue because the Western Hemisphere is extremely wealthy and abundant in natural resources. But if you are Japan and Germany, then you have to reach out and expand your borders if you are to maintain your industrial might. So these are the three major trends we should be seeing very quickly.
Well, here's something that thieves count on. Security cameras usually.
Man, you know Tucker get us out of here for them damn ads, man.
I mean, we've of course seen this exact dynamic very famously in the last century.
What's up, Classified?
And I do think Japan is the big question mark because traditionally, you know, a rising power, a great power like China, just kind of intuitively demands hegemony in its own region. Like,
see, this is what I think as well. Jiang says Iran is not joking or trying to bluff like the Trump. It's a survival matter. Gene, I don't think Trump's trying to bluff either. That's where me and you disagree. I think Trump is so far in that he's doubling and tripling down. I think this is a make it or break it moment for Trump, and he'll ride this shit till the wheels fall off, Chad. I'm talking about until we run out of gas, Chad. I'm just going to be honest. That's what I believe. If y'all have a different opinion, let me know in the comments. But I think Trump is ready to ride this shit till the wheels fall off, bro. I don't think he's bluffing either, man.
China controls the East. I would imagine that's the Chinese perspective, but in the way of that are Japan, the historic enemy, and South Korea, but particularly Japan. And I know that people in your country are very focused on Japan. So is it plausible that China allows Japan to become, say, a nuclear armed power at this point?
Right. So from the surface, it seems as though Japan has a lot of structural weaknesses. Okay. So, for example, it has an aging population. It has the oldest population in the world. That's a huge constraint on the future growth potential of Japan. Another problem for Japan is that it is resource dependent. It relies on imports for its resources. And Taiwan blocks off the Strait of Malacca, right? Because Japan requires most of its energy from the GCC through the Strait of Malacca, and Taiwan will be a barrier. So if Taiwan were to reunify with China, then basically Japan can be blockaded and they could be starved. And the other major issue with Japan is its economy, where for the past 30 years, it's in a deflationary spiral because of its excessive debt burden. So there are fundamental weaknesses to Japan, but I'm a historian and I study historical patterns. And what I've seen is that the Japanese people are incredibly resilient. You go back to the 13th century, and the Mongols invaded not once, but twice. And at this time, Japan was very much a feudal nation divided into different fiefdoms. And they came together as a people to defeat the greatest empire in the world at that time, not once, but twice. And you go to the middle of the 19th century when China was being carved up by these Western industrial powers. And it seemed as though Japan was about to be carved up as well. But the Japanese engaged in something called the Meiji Restoration. And in 20 to 30 years' time, they went from a feudal backward nation into an industrial power that ultimately defeated Russia in the Russo-Japanese War of 1905, right? And then you go to World War II, when America devastated Japan, not just nuclear strikes, but also the fire bombings.
Yes.
So at the end of
And that's what Trump said. Remember, Trump said, who knows better about surprises than Japan? Well, they know more so than we do, man. Trump really played in that woman's face. Japan's new leader, man, Trump played in her face. Chat, look, we're 25 likes away from the next like goal. Let's smash through 275 likes and let's get on our way to 300, man. I appreciate everybody for showing up and hanging out. If you're having a good time, say good time in the chat, man. Let me know you're here.
World War II, Japan was completely devastated. But in like 20 years' time, in a generation, they became the world's greatest manufacturing power. So I would not count the Japanese out. There's something about their culture that is extremely resilient, extremely entrepreneurial. And I think that given crises, they will come together as a people and adapt to these challenges. And so if I were to bet, if you give me like $1 billion and said, in East Asia, you can invest your money either in China or Japan, or you could invest half and half. Well, Tucker, I'll be honest with you. I would invest all my money in Japan.
That's what a fascinating analysis. I agree with you. I mean, intuitively, I agree with you. But I just wonder if China can tolerate that, given the history.
I want to know, why did he say he would invest all his money in Japan? He didn't say bet. He said invest. Why? 15. Oh, let me go back, Chad.
If I were to bet, if you give me like $1 billion and said in East Asia, you can invest your money either in China or Japan, or you could invest half and half. Well, Tucker, I'll be honest with you. I would invest all my money in Japan.
That's what a fascinating analysis. I agree with you. I mean, intuitively, I agree with you. But I just wonder if China can tolerate that, given the history between the two countries and the focus and just the growth of China. Can they really allow, right in the middle of East Asia, a competing power?
Right. So the major issue with China is that it styles itself the Middle Kingdom. 中国, the Middle Kingdom,
yes.
Which is to say that the Chinese believe that they are a universe unto themselves. What happens outside China doesn't really impact China. So what's important is to maintain the national sovereignty of China, because it is a self-sufficient nation that has absolutely no interest in the outside world. Japan is complete opposite in that it is an island, and it requires it basically needs to extract resources from other nations in order to survive as a nation. So these are two very different mentalities, where China is very much an agricultural, self-sufficient nation that is insular and conservative, and Japan is an outward-looking, seafaring nation.
Interesting. So it sounds like they can coexist, or you just said it. You're not betting against Japan. What about South Korea, which has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, birth rate in the world, in contrast to North Korea, and has basically modeled itself on the United States. I mean, down to the most basic level. The U.S. pulling back from East Asia that's going to be a transformative thing, I would think, for South Korea. What happens?
Yeah, South Korea is in a very precarious position, primarily because of North Korea. So once the United States is forced to withdraw from Southeast Asia, then North Korea can take the initiative. And the problem.
Chad, have any of you ever visited Japan, Korea, South Korea, or anywhere in the Middle East? If you've ever traveled abroad, let me know where you've traveled abroad to, Chad. I've never been abroad. I want to see how well traveled the Chad is.
The problem with this conflict is that Seoul, the largest city in South Korea, it's only 30 minutes away from North Korean artillery. So in like a whole day, North Korea could flatten Seoul. And so South Korea is in a very precarious position. Also, if you look at the economy of Seoul, of South Korea, it's a very...
No, I mean anywhere abroad. At first, I was talking about Japan, Korea, but when I said the Middle East, I'm just taking everything. Like, if you've been abroad, I want to know where the Chad has been. So that's why I said I want to know how well traveled, So it started off as just Japan and all that, but now it's everywhere. Like, how well traveled are you?
Ossified, very corrupt system where just a few companies control the entire economy. And this is what's led to intense competition in South Korea, which has led to the extremely low birth rate in South Korea. So South Korea is in a...
So, Chad, I've traveled most of the continental 48, man. Most of the continental 48 states I've traveled, I haven't really hit the East Coast that hard, but most of the United States I have at least visited or driven through, or shit like that, except the East Coast. I've never been to like New York. I've never been to New York.
In a very precarious position. But what I will say about the South Koreans is that they are fanatical workers. They work really, really hard. And they have a long memory of colonial persecution from both the Chinese and the Japanese. And these are fiercely independent people. So I would not be surprised if North Korea and South Korea were to come to a compromise at some point, because both nations aspire for national unification. And because China and Japan will be in conflict with each other, then the Korean people could actually...
The favorite state I visit, it depends on what
what it's for. So I have a few states that I like, but it's for different things. Like if I just want to go, let's say if I want to go just hang out and relax or something. Of course, I like going to like Dallas or Austin. Those are pretty cool cities and chill cities. If I want to maybe pop out, step out, bar hop or something, I choose Phoenix. Like Phoenix is a pretty cool place for that kind of shit. If I just want to go to the beach or do some shit, I'll probably of course choose California. So that's just that's just me. I like Colorado too. It's cool. I like the mountains. Colorado is actually a pretty friendly people as well. Like Colorado is pretty friendly, a friendly place.
Navigate this conflict to the benefit.
That's very smart. I sense you're absolutely right about that. Let me just ask you about an observation you made parenthetically a second ago, which is because South Korea's economy is ossified and centralized, it's a monopoly economy, its birth rate is low. What's the connection between economic monopolies and low birth rate?
Yeah, great question. So when you have a monopoly, what you do is you create a hierarchy, right? Because everyone's trying to get into these companies because these companies are the most prestigious in South Korea. And South Korea is very much a Confucian culture where face is everything. So the problem, though, is how do you get into these companies? It's a very prestigious position where everyone's trying to get in, right? And so you usually get in through the college entrance examination, which allows you to get into a prestigious university, right? So if you are a South Korean couple, your strategy is either not to have children because you cannot afford to play this game, because you need to send your kid to cram schools, get the best tutors, basically focus all your resources on ensuring the child does well on the college examination so that he or she can get into Samsung. Or you can choose not to have, so you can choose not to have any children because it's too expensive for you. But if you choose to have children, you can only choose to have one kid because it's much more strategic for you to put all your resources into one kid than to spread it over 3 or 4 kids. So that's why economic monopoly would naturally lead to a low birth rate.
So what you're saying is intense competition for resources, scarce resources, produces an incentive that results in low birth rate.
Exactly, because everyone sees themselves as competitors against each other, right. And you lose a sense of community, right? Because you have a lot of children because you want to contribute to the community and grow as a nation. But when you see your neighbor as your enemy, then that reduces your incentive to have children.
Interesting. So what will be the economic effects on China and also on the rest of Asia and Southeast Asia, Philippines, Vietnam, if this energy crunch continues in the Middle East?
The reality is that this war in the Middle East is having a severe impact already on the entire Southeast Asian economy. So India imports about 60% of its oil from the GCC. Pakistan also imports a majority of its oil. Japan imports about 75% of its oil from the GCC. China imports about 40%. Okay, so all these economies are being impacted, and already Thailand, Vietnam are running out of fuel. And when you go to a gas station, there's just no more fuel for your motorbike. And now people are being forced to work from home. There's fuel rationing. There's no jet fuel. So this is impacting all of Southeast Asia. So the question isn't like who.
That's what I was speaking about earlier, the jet fuel. The jets, they're not getting jet fuel over there, chat. That's what I was speaking about. We talked about it yesterday. That's gonna be a very big development right there with the fuel being cut off. I was looking for it right here. Double tap the screen, shut a live out. It's yeah, 17% of the natural gas supply is offline for the next 15 years, but also I believe it was Thailand was saying that they won't be able to get any jet fuel starting in April. So they probably have about 2 weeks left for jet fuel.
Impacted because everyone's impacted The question is who will be most resilient and the most willing to innovate and adapt to this new reality? Because we're not talking about short-term war. We're talking about a long-term change to the global economy. And I think that China will actually be the least resilient and the least ready to adapt.
Yeah, I've been to San Antonio. The river walk in San Antonio is pretty cool. I like the river walk in San Antonio. And then Converse is on the other side, like I believe the east side of San Antonio. It's pretty cool. Chat, we got to get to 300 likes though. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. We got to get to 300 likes. Everybody hit the like button right now. We'll smash through 300 and be on our way to 400 likes. I appreciate everybody for showing up and hanging out with me tonight, man. Appreciate everybody.
To this new reality, because for the past 30, 40 years, China has gotten very wealthy because of the global economy, where it imports cheap energy and exports manufactured goods. And the entire Chinese economy is currently based on this model. Now, for the past 20 years, China has been moving towards a consumer-based economy and more of an innovation-based economy, AI. But unfortunately, AI itself is dependent on cheap energy. And Chinese consumers are refusing to spend money for a variety of reasons, primarily because they are not that optimistic about China's growth in the future. So Chinese household savings is about 40%. And unless the government is able to get Chinese to spend more money, then it'll be very hard for the Chinese economy to move towards a consumer-based economy. So all of Southeast Asia will be impacted. And I think China will be impacted the most in the long term. Maybe not in the short term, because China still has access to Iranian oil. Scott Bessent announced today that they will lift sanctions on Iranian oil in order to make sure the global economy is not too impacted by this war. But in the long term, the Chinese economy, it is now much too focused on export and manufacturing in order to shift to a much more diversified economy.
Right. People seem to be more inflamed, not just emotionally.
All right, chat. We're about 3 likes away from that next like goal. I'm gonna slide through so we don't gotta catch that ad.
What about the GCC? What does that look like in 5 years?
Oh, the GCC might be done, chat. I'm not gonna lie. The GCC might just be done. That I'm just saying, people in Dubai, bombs dropping, airstrikes. We just seen the reporter. Where was he at? He was in Lebanon, I think. He almost got hit with airstrike. It might be done, chat. It just might be over with.
Right. So unfortunately, the biggest loser of this war, regardless of how it turns out, okay, even if Americans were to win, the biggest loser is the GCC. Because for the past 30, 40 years, the GCC is basically built on a mirage, because it's essentially a desert with very little access to fresh water and very little agriculture. And so it couldn't really sustain a large population. But with the petrodollar and with American military protection, then the GCC nations felt free to invest in technology that allowed them to grow their population, right? So desalination plants, modern infrastructure. So you sort of saw this massive growth in Dubai, in Qatar, in Riyadh. And what this war has done is shattered this mirage and revealed the limitations of the GCC. So for example, look at Dubai. So Dubai for many years has prided itself as this safe, very cosmopolitan, very open tax haven. So a lot of wealthy people immigrated to Dubai. But because of this war, and we're talking about like a few drones hitting hotels, it's really shattered the image of Dubai. And once you shatter this mirage, you can never, ever rebuild it again. So the idea of Dubai as like the future New York or London, the financial capital of the GCC, this mirage has evaporated.
Iran in 5 years?
So what will be the financial capital over there? What will be the financial capital over there then, chat?
So Iran is being devastated right now. So the Israelis and Americans are attacking.
I think that was pretty much a no-brainer follow-up question. You know, like that was a no-brainer follow-up question. Well, if it's not going to be one of those countries, it's going to be the financial capital of the area. Who do you think will be? It's kind of a no-brainer follow-up.
Critical infrastructure. So the Israelis attacked the largest gas field in Iran. The desalination plant was destroyed. But we also have to remember what is being hidden from us. And what's being hidden from us is the fact that the Israelis and Americans are trying to destroy the capacity of the state to govern the nation, basically destroy the state's monopoly on violence. And so what we're hearing are attacks on police officers, on military installations, and there's talk of special forces going into Iran and starting to fund dissident groups, right? Like the Kurds and the Palakis in southeast Iran. So no matter what happens in this war, it's going to be very hard for the government to maintain national.
Yeah, one of those groups over there just dropped like a propaganda video, and it was a girl. She was a female, and she had like a American-made AR. She sure had American-made AR in that video.
Control, even if they were to survive this war. And also another huge issue for Iran is that for the past few years, it suffered drought issues. So its agriculture was heavily impacted. They were actually talking about moving.
That's a good question, dude OE. Are they gonna be able to fund their own reconstruction? No. So what Professor Jiang is saying that during a ceasefire, negotiating a ceasefire, Iran is gonna want up to $1 trillion for reconstruction and to rebuild. So I posed the question to the chat: do you think Iran is entitled to $1 trillion in reparations? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat right now. Yes or no? Is Iran entitled to $1 trillion in reparations? Also, hit the like button, chat. Everybody hit the like button right now. Double tap the screen like this, or go to the top and hit it, and we'll get to that next like goal. Yes or no?
Terrain, like moving these millions of people out of the city of Tehran because the capital can no longer sustain this large population. So this war will only exacerbate these environmental issues, especially with the attacks on critical civilian infrastructure, for example, dams, reservoirs, desalination plants. And it's going to take years and years for Iran to recover from this war as a nation. And you have basically the storing of ethnic settlements. You have the destruction of the state's capacity to deliver basic services. But the good news for Iran is that it seems as though they will be able to maintain control over the Strait of Hormuz. And that is critical because now they're able to charge a toll on anyone who uses the Strait of Hormuz. And they talk about 10%, which should generate about $800 billion a year annually for Iran. So the nation will be destroyed in this war, but if it's able to harness the pride of the Persian people, if it's able to unify the Persian people, and it's able to leverage the resources of the Strait of Hormuz effectively, then we can expect Iran to rise again in like 10 to 20 years' time.
Where is Israel in a few years from now?
So if you look at the main beneficiary of this war, it is Israel, because Israel has an ambition called the Greater Israel Project, which is what they believe that their God, Yahweh, promised to their ancestor, Abraham. And so they believe that Yahweh promised Abraham all the land from the Nile in Egypt to Euphrates in Iraq. If you look at the entire map, it also extends to Anatolia, which is southern Turkey, and even into Saudi Arabia. So if you look at what's happening, well, it's convenient in that the GCC is being destroyed. Saudi Arabia will probably be drawn into this war. It is possible Turkey will be drawn into this war as well. And this war.
So we heard that what was it? The second in charge of Israel came out and said that Turkey is next. Turkey is the next great threat to Israel after they deal with Iran. Turkey is next, right? Wasn't that wasn't Netanyahu? I believe that was the second in charge of the old prime ministers. One of those people said that Chat, everybody hit the like button right now. We're 25 likes away from the next like goal. If this is your first time in my live stream, say what's up, and if I see it, I'll give you a shout out. Mods, welcome all the first timers and all the new subscribers, man. Power to the plugs.
Allows Israel to remake the Middle East in its own image. Also, if you think about it, according to game theory, the main constraint to Israel achieving the Greater Israel Project is actually not Iran, but America, because America guarantees the military safety and protection of the GCC, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Iran, UAE, these nations. And so if Israel is become dominant, it's become the hegemon of the Middle East, it needs to figure out how to remove America from the equation. And quite honestly, this war has shown the limitations of American power. It's really annoyed the American people. The American people do not want this war, and American people don't even understand why America is in the Middle East. And so it's very possible that regardless of what happens in this war, America is forced to withdraw from the Middle East, in which case Israel is able to achieve its Greater Israel Project.
Standard security cameras cannot prevent break-in.
You said Turkey's impossible. That's a NATO member. I don't know, Chad. You remember how there was rumblings of leaving NATO? Remember Greenland? They were talking about Greenland, and Greenland was supposed to be, I don't know. It's shaky right now. Yeah, Turkey is a NATO member, but right now it's really shaky.
It's about 7 days' time. And the rumor is, and I don't know, but the rumor is the intention is for them to take Karg Island, which is the main oil depot for Iran. So Iran exports 9% of its oil from that facility, the island. And if the Marines were to take it, it would be great optics. Trump would look good on TV. It'd be a great boost for American morale. The problem is that you can take it, but you can't hold it, because it's too close to Iranian coast, and the Iranians can attack with artillery, with drones, okay? Which means that you now have to take on the coast. You have to occupy the coast and create a forward operating base. But then you're exposed to the Zagros Mountains, right? Which means that you're now forced to occupy the mountains as well. So it's mission creep. It's exactly like Vietnam, where in 1965, 3,000 Marines went into Da Nang to occupy an air base. And like 4 or 5 years later, you have a 500,000 troops, right? So it started off as a very limited, self-defined mission, but then it just balloons. So America could find itself in the situation very quickly.
If you were the commander-in-chief of the United States, what would you do at this point, as of today?
Here we go.
Commander-in-chief.
What would you do? If you were Donald Trump, what would you do in regarding this war in the Middle East today, Chad? Best answer, we'll pin it as a comment, man. Best answer gets the pinned comment for the rest of the night, man. What would you do right now?
You meaning Donald Trump?
Yeah. You get to make the decision. What does America do next if it's acting in its own interest, if it's trying to preserve its power and wealth? At this point, what does it do?
Well, first of all, I would acknowledge that all these events are interconnected, right? So this trade war with China, this war in Ukraine, this war in the Middle East, it's all interconnected because the American empire is too overstretched, and it has its fingers on everything. And so it allows its enemies to provoke it into these never-ending wars. So what I would do is basically sit down everyone, okay, including Russia, China.
Wow, we have a wide range of answers in here, Chad. It's ranging from people saying leave, get out, save the money, all the way to nuke Iran. Offer a ceasefire after the war. Okay, y'all are getting there. Y'all are getting there, man. It's some decent comments, man. It's a wide range. Some of y'all are warmongers. Some of y'all want to go home, man. I don't know. Y'all gotta make it a parking lot. Wow.
Iran and say it's time for a new world order where we are partners in this relationship, right? Before America was the hegemon, before the US dollar was the world reserve currency. But now what we want to do is open a dialogue where everyone is respected, where America is no longer the bully, but a willing partner in creating a new economic order that benefits everyone and not just and not just a few.
I think that's the wisest possible advice and probably the only path that preserves civilization. But the one country standing in the way of that is Israel, which is the only beneficiary of this war, as you just said. I think that's true. Can you think of another beneficiary other than Israel of this war?
Well, Russia benefits, right? Because Russia is trying to win this war in Ukraine.
That's correct.
And America is forced to lift oil sanctions. And so now Russia is now able to take all these war profits, right? And then help the Iranians, finance the Iranians in the struggle against the Americans and Israelis. So the Russians also benefit tremendously from this war.
Yeah, but fair point. Israel has to be constrained by the United States in order to do what you just recommended it do. Is that possible? Does the American president have the authority to control its client state?
So if you look at the domestic situation in Israel, Israel no longer behaves rationally. It is sort of overtaken by eschatological fever, right? So if you look at videos coming out of Israel, there are rabbis going around saying that this war in the Middle East, even though it's destroying Tel Aviv, it's good for us because this will lead to the coming of our Messiah.
Yes, and they also said Jerusalem was hit with some debris in the old city, the holy city. You know where they said everything needs to go down. We also know that the wall, people can't mass gather at the wall. They have where Jesus was resurrected, they have that shut down as well right now, Chad. It's going on over there. It's going on. But I need everybody to hit the like button right now. We got 1,000 people in here. If everybody hits the like button, we should smash past at least 500 likes right here, right now, Chad. If you lay back in the bed, sit up and double tap the screen for me or hit the top button, man. Come on, Chad. We got to get the 500 likes right quick, man.
So they believe that it is when Israel is under the most strain, when the very existence of Israel is threatened, then God will intervene because the Jewish people will come together as a nation again and commit themselves, renew their faith in God. And once God sees the blind, trusting, absolute faith of the Jewish people, then he will save his people by sending his Messiah, who will then redeem the Jewish people. So another way of saying this is secular temporal matters don't really matter. This war in the Middle East, not an issue. What matters is divinity. What matters is our relationship with God.
Yes.
So what matters is faith. If nuclear bombs go flying, doesn't really matter.
Floor seats, you can donate at that link right here. You can donate at that link right there, man. Ko-fee, Ko-fi with the dash in between .com/Pluxation. It'll bring it up. You can help buy me a new do-rag at USC. You can support the channel, buy some gear, whatever, man. That's the link. It'll take all forms of payment too.
What's so interesting is that, 25 years ago at 9/11, whatever you think of how that happened and why, there was, I saw it personally, a political Islam. There were Wahhabists. There were a lot of Islamic radicals around the world. And for a bunch of reasons over 25 years, that hasn't disappeared. There still exist Islamic radicals, but it's not, an important political force anymore. At the same time, as Islam in general has become much more moderate, and the GCC is kind of the most obvious example of this, there has been a rise of Jewish Wahhabism and evangelical Christian Wahhabism, so to speak. I mean, you've seen this eschatological extremism among some American Protestants, Christians, and some Israeli and American Jews. How did that happen? What is that?
Right. So first of all, I don't think we can ever overestimate the influence of eschatology in American politics.
Exactly.
So I'll give an example where
It's a real plate, chat, with some cabbage and some macaroni and cheese, man. If y'all want to know what I'm eating, it's a real plate, cabbage, macaroni and cheese. Please double tap the screen. We're 4 likes away from 400, man. We need 4 more likes to hit 400.
a quarter of Americans are evangelicals, and a lot of them are Christian Zionists. So they believe that Israel is crucial, the linchpin to achieving God's plan and the return of Jesus. And so a very prominent figure that you probably know very well is John Hagee, who runs something called the Christians United for Israel. It's 7 million members. And these are the people who are financing a lot of the conflict in the Middle East, in Israel, because they're the ones who are funding West Bank settlements. And so Christian Zionism, it is an extremely powerful political force in America. So your question is, how did this happen? And
yes,
the issue is that this is a plan that has been in motion for centuries, and it's a very complicated history, but it involves different religious groups among the Jews, Septim Francus, Shabbat Lubavitch, which you've talked about, but also it involves the Freemasons, the Knights Templars, the Rosicrucians. It involves the Jesuits. So you have these different secret societies, different religious organizations working together through the centuries to achieve this plan for the end of the world, which heralds the Messianic age, okay? And there are different components of this plan, but the basic components are, one is the creation of the nation state of Israel, which happened in 1948. And then you need to have the building of the third temple, which requires the destruction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is actually, which could happen during this war, given what we've seen so far.
Thank you, Nugget. Thank you, Nugget, for the super chat. You said your entertainment intellect is worth a play. Thank you, Nugget.
So the Israelis have closed off the Al-Aqsa Mosque, as well as other religious sites like the Church of Holy Sepulchre, to tourists these past few days. There's rumors that for the past 2 years, the Israelis have been conducting these archaeological digs under the Al-Aqsa Mosque to basically destroy the foundations of the mosque, so that they can conduct a controlled demolition.
Have y'all heard that, chat, that they've been trying to hollow it out? I believe that it's in Jerusalem. Have y'all heard that they've been trying to hollow it out?
Of the mosque and blame it on a missile strike from the Iranians. And there's actually talk among the Israelis of using this plan to ignite a war between the Arabs and the Persians. So the Al-Aqsa Mosque needs to be destroyed for the third temple. They also talk about this war of Gog and Magog between Israel and the entire world. Then the coming of the Jewish Messiah, the creation of the Greater Israel Project, the return of all Jews from the diaspora. So there are different components to this plan. If you just observe geopolitical events, we're seeing these events converge together today. I mean, all these events are playing out. So it seems as though there are these very powerful shadow forces working behind the scenes. We don't know who they are, but it seems as though they're able to control geopolitics in a certain manner as to fulfill their eschatological script.
What role do you think Donald Trump plays in this?
That's a really hard question to answer. So let's look at different possibilities, okay? The first possibility is that he's been employed as an actor, and he's just following a script, but he doesn't really know where this movie is going. He's just doing his part, but he's manipulated behind the scenes by people around him. And, you know, when reporters asked him, like, why is this war in Iran happening? He did say that his advisors, which include Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Peter Hegseth, Marco Rubio, told him that the Iranians were so close to getting a nuclear weapon and that the Iranians were going to attack first. And so I was basically misled. And I think that's probably true, in that Trump surrounds himself with certain people that have a certain political eschatological agenda. So that's one possibility, that he's just an actor. Another possibility is that he himself has a messianic calling, okay? And what I mean by that is, if you go back to January 2021, he was politically dead, right? Because the January 6th riots happened. He was impeached twice. And then after he left office, there was lawfare conducted against him, and he went bankrupt. So it was as though the entire world went against him. But now he's president of the United States. And so how would he personally understand this? I think a lot of it is God has asked him to serve. There's a call to serve, and he has to fulfill a mission. But what this mission is, okay? What this mission is, whether it's to save Israel, whether it's to save America, whether it's a part of a grander scheme, only he in his heart knows. And I think no one except him knows, okay? So I think that's another possibility. And the third possibility is that this is all Israel's doing. Netanyahu is the one who's forced him into this sort of situation because the Israelis attacked first. And Marco Rubio said this, where, you know what, we wanted these negotiations, but the Israelis were planning to attack. If they attacked, the Iranians would be compelled to attack both the Americans and the Israelis. And we did not want to put our soldiers in harm's way, so we attacked with the Israelis. Okay, so it's possible this is all Netanyahu and all his machinations. And another fourth possibility is they have co-opted him. Like there's blackmail on him. There's and he has absolutely no choice but to do what he says because he's compromised in a certain way, and maybe his family is under threat. So all four are possibilities, and quite honestly, I have no idea which possibility is the most correct.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does, and I've really tried to keep speculation to a minimum. You always want to believe that people's motives are transparent, that they state why they're doing what they're doing. But of course, you can never know what's inside a man, right? Even in yourself, it's hard to know your own motive.
And they're calling, they saying that the generals told the soldiers he was the anointed one. We seen him get the silver crown of the Torah in 2023. Like, come on now, man. These folks trying to bring on the end times, chat. Double tap the screen, shut a live out, chat. We're 25 likes away from the next like goal, and we are 8 subscribers away from 44,300. If we get the next 8 subscribers, let me know that you subscribe, and I'll try to make sure I give you a shout out, man.
Motives very often. So I think that's a wise take. What happens to North America, United States, and I do want to include Mexico and Canada. We don't think a lot about those countries, but they're both massive land masses and they have big populations and they're our neighbors. And so if the world is reorienting, I think you need to think in terms of continents rather than just nation states. What does that look like in 3 or 4 years?
Right. So from a geopolitical perspective, if America is forced to retreat back into the Western Hemisphere, it needs to worry about resources. And so it is in the best interest of America to eventually take over and colonize both Canada and Mexico.
Yes.
Mexico for its labor supply, Canada for its resources. Canada's probably the wealthiest country in the world.
I know.
And so from a geopolitical perspective,
inconspicuous. No, I'm totally degenerate. I'm pretty much all in crypto and precious metals, man. I don't really have not much in the market right now. Not much in the market right now. Pretty much crypto, precious metals, and shit.
The world is retreating into self-sufficiency. If there's mercantilism, if there's trade barriers, then America has absolutely no choice but to ensure its own supply networks. And that means eventually taking over Greenland, Canada, Mexico, Latin America, Cuba, Venezuela. So America doesn't really have much choice in this matter. At the same time, what we're seeing is that this war, as well as other events, are causing political fissures in America, especially between left and right. So witness what happened in Minneapolis in January, right? And so we can expect that as this war continues, and there's a strong possibility that Donald Trump will call up a national draft in order to ensure the manpower to fight this war, then you will have rioting in the streets, you have massive violence, in which case the National Guard is deployed. There's a plan to deploy the National Guard to all major American cities by April. And so, unfortunately, America is probably going to suffer many years of sectarian violence. Not a full-fledged civil war, but maybe something along the lines of the Troubles in Ireland. I'm not sure if you've seen this terrible movie called One Battle After Another, It's just a terrible movie, by the way. But
Chat, have you seen the movie One Battle After Another, chat? Yes or no? We watched it in the Discord, chat. If you join my Discord, sometimes we have movie nights or, we watch fights. Like, it's a real community over there, man. Moz, drop the Discord, or you can go to my community tab wall, the post, and my Discord is there. But we watched that One Battle After Another in the Discord.
it gives you insight into what a civil war might look like, where you have these insurgent groups fighting against the state. So yeah.
But you expect the United States to hang together as a coherent nation state?
Listen, Tucker, the United States is the greatest nation in the world. The people are open, generous, entrepreneurial, energetic. The resources of America are infinite. America is a continental fortress so that it's protected by two oceans. America doesn't have a peer competitor in North America and South America. And so, I mean, America, regardless of what happens, America will still come out doing pretty well just because of the pure energy and creativity of its people.
See, you mentioned Canada. Most Americans don't even know the capital of Canada. Canada does not appear on their radar, doesn't figure in their thoughts. But you described it as probably, quote, probably the richest country in the world. I think that's objectively true. And yet Canada is not a rich country. In fact, it's getting poorer. Its life expectancy is declining. Its GDP is declining. And that's on purpose. The nation of Canada has been suppressed on purpose. Its population is being killed off by the state through its assisted suicide program, and its population is changing through mass immigration.
But what's crazy is, chat, when I hear shit like that, it's like, we have that too. Like, do y'all know that? Like, America has exactly what Tucker just said. Canada has one. America has one. Like, the difference is whether they let you self-administer or they administer. That's pretty much the only difference, man. It's crazy. And some of them you have to be terminally ill, but
And against the will of the population. So that country is being held down on purpose. And my question is, by whom and why?
Sure, that's a great question. And this is something that I struggle with all the time because I am a Canadian citizen. I went to school there. So my answer is that Canada was never really a nation state. It's more of a glorified resource colony for the British, the city of London. And the reality is now that the British are under a lot of strain, the city of London is under a lot of financial pressure. It sees places like Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And what do you do if you have financial issues? Well, you do corporate restructuring, right? You change the middle management, right? And historically, the British got along very well with the Indian elite, right? They went into India and stole trillions of dollars from the Indians, and the Indian elite were perfectly happy to help them, right? So why not use the same model for Australia, for Canada? So, there are millions of Indians who immigrated to Canada in the past 5 years, and it's put a lot of strain on the Canadian economy because housing prices have exploded, and so.
Yeah, the average home price in Canada was like $900K a couple years ago. I think it's pushed up to like $1 million now. And if you're talking about in the city, it's like 1.5 million. It's like 1.5 million to own something in the city in Canada. It's crazy.
So ordinary Canadians can no longer afford to buy a house. And it's put tremendous pressure on the Canadian welfare system, on the Canadian economy. And you would think that the proper strategy would have a moratorium where they're like, you know what, we've had too many immigrants and we need to close the borders and absorb these immigrants because we want to ensure that these immigrants have proper housing, they have decent jobs, right? You would think that that'd be the right strategy.
Yes.
And instead, Mark Carney goes to India and says, we want more Indians. And also, we'll give you scholarships to come to Canada to study for free. Meanwhile, there are a lot of Canadians who are homeless, who are unemployed, and who cannot put food on the table. But hey, we want more Indians. So if it's not corporate restructuring, if it's not trying to asset strip Canada, I really don't understand the strategy for this.
Well, I mean, it's a kind of genocide, right, against Canadians, people whose ancestors built the country. But you wonder what the purpose is. Like, this is because it is happening all over the West, all over the English-speaking world, in the white countries. And it's not an accident. It's not organic. So it's a big picture, you know, that spans from Australia to Ottawa. And what is that? Do you know?
Right. So
it's crazy when I hear questions like that, because it's like, it's the white folks doing it, man. Tucker, you sitting there asking Professor Jiang, man, and Mark Carney's white, man, like the immigration shit, Biden was white. Y'all talking about London, UK, Britain, they talking about mass boats coming over full of military age men and shit, and they're changing it. Man, listen, all the people making them decisions, man, pretty much be white, man. So I don't know why he's asking Professor Jiang.
Well, let's look at Europe, because in 2014, this was a major turning point in Europe, because you had these tens of millions of refugees trying to escape these wars in the Middle East, created by America's wars in the Middle East. And they were trying to reach Europe. And at this point, Europe had a choice. It could choose to close its borders and maintain its cultural identity, or it could open the floodgates. And Angela Merkel, the chancellor...
Appreciate that, dawg. Dawg says there are 8 states with assisted unaliving for terminal people, including DC.
Germany, she said something really, really famous, and that which stuck in my mind, which is, we can do this. We are Europeans. Somehow we can take in these millions of refugees and welcome them into our societies and thrive as a people. And the complete opposite has happened. You've got millions of these refugees who fled into Europe, not because of their choice, by the way, but because their nations were devastated, right? Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq were all devastated in these wars against terror in the Middle East. So they go, and these are proud Islamists. They love their religion, they love their family, they love their community. And so they're not going to absorb themselves and assimilate themselves into Europe. And today, you're looking at...
That is correct. That is a big topic of discussion, is the assimilation. That is a big topic of discussion, is the assimilation. It's kind of like, even with the white nationalists, when they're not, when they're not on one of those racist tirades, though, and they're actually trying to have a conversation, it all boils down to the assimilation talk. Honestly, throughout all of these debates and conversations I've seen, it's gonna boil down to the assimilation talk. When they're trying to be respectable, nice. Chat, I need everybody to hit the like button, though, man. Let's get to 450 likes right quick. I want to appreciate everybody for rocking out with me, but we do need to hit 450 likes right quick.
Population replacement in a lot of cities. You go to certain places in Britain, and you might think you're in Cairo or Baghdad, and this has caused tremendous conflict throughout Europe. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, 2 to 4 years' time, you have civil war break out, insurgencies break out in places like Britain and France. So the question is, why is this happening throughout the world at the same time?
Exactly.
Why is it that these different nations, whether they're European, whether they're Canadian or Australian, why are they adopting the same policies? Not just in terms of COVID, right, but also in terms of, like, immigration. And so that's one of the great questions that we have to ask about the world we live in today. It seems as though it's almost a controlled demolition of Western civilization, right? The Anglosphere, Western Europe. It seems as though these nations are being destroyed purposely. For what end? I don't know, but I would just say there's a certain pattern that has emerged, and the result can only end up in the controlled demolition of these societies.
I don't even think that's up for debate. I mean, of course, just look at the bottom line numbers. Of course, the white populations are being killed on purpose, and the question is why. And I don't have the faintest idea, and I know there's a lot of speculation as to who's doing it. I'll just say bluntly, I don't know. I mean, I know who the instruments are, of course, but Keir Starmer's not in charge of Great Britain. Macron isn't in charge of France. I'm not sure how many leaders really do have control of their countries. I don't know how many countries actually have sovereignty. I really don't know the answer. But something is going on. Is there any precedent for this in history? Have you ever seen anything like this as a historian?
Right. So you look at what's happening in Ukraine, where the war is lost. It was lost 2 years ago. The Ukrainians have lost over 1 million fighting men. A lot of their people have fled overseas. No matter what happens in this war, Ukraine is finished as a nation state. It is no longer viable as a nation state. And rather than admit defeat and come to a ceasefire with Putin, what the Europeans are doing is they're saying that we're going to draft our men and have them fight in the trenches of Ukraine, which would be suicide because the Russians dominate the battlefield with their drones and artillery and trenches in Ukraine. So it's almost like a suicide mission. But not only that, but the Germans have said that, okay, we can only draft German men, but not Islamic men because we're afraid of their loyalty, which means that you have a situation where, local men like British, French, German men are being sent to die in the trenches of Ukraine. And, back at home, you have these immigrant population that have not assimilated into your culture. So it's a really weird strategy. And I don't know who comes up with these with this sort of stuff. And look, there's no historical precedent for this. There just isn't. I mean, there's been incidents of mass immigration. You go back to the fall of the Roman Empire and how these hordes of immigrants flooded the Romans. And it's almost impossible to assimilate so many people. Eventually, there's going to be a cultural takeover. Eventually, with so many people who are insistent on maintaining their cultural identity, eventually, because they have more children than you, eventually they're going to overwhelm your cultural identity.
Yeah, and I do think that is the story of history, one population replacing another. There's no such thing as multiculturalism. There's always a dominant culture that, that insists on dominance, of course. I just don't think there's ever been anyone who thought this could happen globally, like a systematic targeting of a race for elimination globally. I mean, it wasn't possible until pretty recently, but it would be interesting to know what the plan is. There's clearly like a plan behind that. There's a plan behind everything. I wonder, how many Americans do you think understand what's actually happening in the world right now?
Unfortunately, I think that if you are educated in America, I went to Yale, and so I know a lot of these Ivy League people.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we've been indoctrinated to believe certain values, and these values are not questionable. So for example, there was a court case that went to the Supreme Court about affirmative action at the University of Michigan. And affirmative action is clearly against American values, against the idea of American meritocracy, right? But the Supreme Court said that affirmative action was good because diversity is an inherent good, okay? And it's interesting because if you go to a place like Yale or Harvard or any of these Ivy League schools, there's actually very little diversity. I'm talking about intellectual diversity.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's different skin color, but if you actually look at the ideas that they engage with in a classroom, it's a very conformist setting. So it's one of these great ironies where affirmative action is supposed to bring diversity to the classroom. But if you go to any classroom in an elite setting, it's extremely conformist. You're not allowed to bring up these issues about, population replacement, immigration, because then you be called a racist. And that's the worst thing to be called, right? You're better off being called a pedophile, right? Yes. Pedophiles have more rights now than racists. Unfortunately, it's not just what's happening in current events. It's also what's happening in the classroom, and in the popular culture, where people are not even allowed to ask questions that are blindly obvious if you just walk the streets of any Western city.
You've lived around the world. I think you're now in China. Does the rest of the world see this more clearly?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not in the West and if you're not subjected to this brainwashing, indoctrination that they feed you in the schools, it's obvious. Again, it's blinding obvious to anyone if you just walk the streets of any major city in the West. So there's a joke in China, and so Chinese don't actually like to go to Canada for tourism. And someone asked, why doesn't anyone recommend Chinese going to Canada? And the response was,
I don't know, Chad. Why don't the Chinese go to Canada? I don't know. I never really thought about Chinese in Canada. It's kind of crazy. But look, Chad, we're 13 likes away from the next like goal, and we're 11 subscribers away from the next sub goal, man. Be sure to support the channel for free by liking and subscribing to the channel. Thank you.
well, would you recommend someone going to India? Right? So it's a bit racist. It's very racist, okay? But I mean, it's obvious to people.
It's just interesting because, like, I'm not defending the whites. I am white, of course, but, white people have done a lot of bad things, just like people do a lot of bad things. But in general, people like to go on, as you just noted, vacation in white countries because they're pretty nice. So I think you'd have to say, if you took the emotion out of it and just, like, looked at it net, whites have been, pretty big addition to the world, invented a lot of stuff, created a lot of beauty, created places people like to go on vacation, which really is a good test. So, like, why would you destroy all that?
Look, so in my school, I teach great books. I teach Western civilization. I teach Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey. I teach Plato, the Republic. I teach Dante, the Divine Comedy. I teach the Bible. And my students love it because Western civilization, it's just not about people being white. It's really about what it means to be human.
Right.
And what it means to be spiritual and to have connections with the divine. So it's unfortunate that just when the world needs Western civilization the most, the West decides to destroy its own civilization. I mean, yes. Homer, Dante, Plato, Shakespeare, the Bible, these are timeless classics that speak to every human. I know because I teach in China to Chinese students who have absolutely no exposure to Western culture, yet they fall in love with Plato, Dante, Homer, and Shakespeare. And why is that? And it's because there is eternal truth embedded in their words. And so universities, Western universities, ought to be the places, the fortresses that are the greatest defenders of Western civilization. But if you go again to these elite universities, Yale, Harvard, they are the most critical of Western civilization. They don't teach Homer and Dante and Plato. And it's like, if you don't teach these classics, what's the purpose of university? I always thought the university was the heart and center of civilization, right? It's like what monasteries were in the medieval age. And I thought these professors, they would dedicate their lives to promoting the classics, but instead they now promote complete nonsense like DEI and yeah.
Of all the, this is my last question, Professor. Thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I hope it won't be our last. And I hope we can have dinner when we're on the same continent. But this is my last question. Since you've traveled so much and lived so many places and speak multiple languages, where would you say the part of the world that's most hostile to Western civilization, as you just described it, is? Trying to understand where this hostility is coming from.
Well, I would say Canada, Britain, Western Europe. I would say these places are the most hostile towards Western civilization. Chinese people have tremendous respect for Western civilization. In fact, in China's, in the process of promoting the classics, Plato, Homer, Shakespeare, in China, because Chinese recognize the tremendous cultural value and immense eternal truths embedded in these classics. So we're in a very weird situation where the West is destroying itself by abandoning what makes it great. which is, these classics.
I think if we talk longer, I'm going to start to cry on camera. So I'm going to take an emotional break here, Professor. Thank you.
Okay.
No,
I did not mean
no.
to upset you. Sorry.
I'm half kidding. No, it's emotionally resonant for me because I know that you're telling the truth and it comports with everything that I've seen. And so it's hard to accept something that's true, but I think what you're saying is true, unfortunately. So bless you for this, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, Tucker.
All right, chat. That was Tucker Carlson's episode, man. Everybody hit the like button, chat. We're 20 likes away from the next like goal. This is Joe Kent. He did another sit down, but this sit down, he was specifically talking about the Iran war and Israel's influence over Trump. We'll see what's going on here.
CIA Special Activities Division, or Special Activities Center, I guess they renamed it, paramilitary. He fought in the terror wars. And then most recently, he was the head of the Counterterrorism Center and famously resigned from the Trump administration over principled objection to the war in Iran. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Happy to have you here. And I'm sorry to do this to you, but we might as well, because it is obviously crucial that since we're apparently living in the 1930s, we need your opinion on the rise of National Socialism in Germany and the avowed anti-Semitism of the new Fuhrer over there, and whether you think we should take the Soviet Union side against them, and whether you agree with their stance on Jews and things like that, please.
I'd prefer to keep to what I know, the war in Iran. But yeah, your sense of humor is not lost on me. It does feel like we're living in those times once again.
Yeah. Well, look, I know your oath was to the U.S. Constitution, and you more closely resemble the kind of guys who fought against Nazi Germany in the Second World War, but they're smearing you, so I figured I'd give you a chance at least to crack a smile, if not defend yourself from the onslaught here. All right, so I also am not an anti-Semite. So apparently you have other motives for your criticisms of American policy, even so badly that you would resign over them, other than a hatred of some.
Yeah, allegedly they were investigating him well before he resigned. So that was something. I believe he was outspoken about the war in Iran, and he was under investigation as far as we know, at least prior to his resignation, chat. We're 2 likes away from 450, chat. Let's hit 450 likes right quick, man.
Religious, ethnic type group. So why don't you explain what it was that's so important, so objectionable about this war with Iran that you really thought it was worth resigning over?
Yeah. So look, my bottom line is that I believe that this war, especially the timing of it, was largely driven by the Israelis' agenda and the Israelis' timeline, and we were forced to react, plunging us into this conflict. Now, there's been a lot of debate over whether there was an imminent threat or not. However, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the President, the Speaker of the House, they've all come out and said that we launched this attack because we knew that the Israelis were going to attack as well. And so I think that tells you pretty much most of what you need to know, that the Israelis were the ones in the driver's seat. And I just think that is completely an irresponsible way for us to conduct ourselves as far as foreign policy goes. We provide Israel everything that they need, or I would say the majority of what they need to defend themselves, but also to go on the offense. And so if we're going to provide them with this level of support, then they need to adhere to our timelines and they need to adhere to our strategic objectives, or they need to be comfortable with going it alone. And if an attack is imminent because of an action a so-called ally is taking, then I think we really need to reassess what that relationship truly is. In my time at NCTC and in the White House at this capacity, I just saw an ecosystem that was created around President Trump between influential members of the media, such as Mark Levin, Dubowitz, think tanks like FDD, Wall Street Journal editorial pages, et cetera, but then also high-ranking Israeli officials and then some advocates, donors, et cetera, that created an ecosystem around President Trump that told him that, you said that President Trump said that Iran could never have a nuclear weapon, but if they can enrich uranium, then they're going to be able to have a nuclear weapon. All President Trump had ever said was Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. And I think most people agree with that. I agree with it. And actually, the former Ayatollah, before he was killed, he agreed with that too, and strictly enforced a red line with his own government and his own military, that they were not allowed to actually enrich and develop a nuclear weapon. They could enrich, but they couldn't develop a nuclear weapon. So the Israelis came in using their official back channels, their unofficial channels, and then also the media to create an artificial red line and say that there could be no enrichment. And that was basically laundered into official U.S. policy that took away the president's decision-making space. And so my issue was that accurate information wasn't being given to the president. The Israelis were largely in the driver's seat of driving our policies. And I think this is a disservice, not just to the American people, but also to President Trump. President Trump is a fantastic negotiator. I think if given the space, he could come up with a deal. I don't believe that war was his first option. So for all those reasons, I tried from the inside for as long as I could to advocate and slow these things down, to give the president more time to make a decision, and until essentially we were boxed out. Myself and others who were advocating for a more pragmatic approach were boxed out, and I felt like, number one, I couldn't be a part of this as someone who said that I would not allow the next generation to go off into war. That was a pledge I made to myself probably on my third or fourth deployment overseas. But then also, I felt that this was probably one of the better ways to be able to communicate to the president that he doesn't have to continue down this path. Sorry, I know that was a long answer.
No, that's good. Long answers are good. Okay, so the headline is blames Israel lobby. And here...
All right, Chad, be sure to check the poll out, man. I just put up a new poll. Do you trust Donald Trump, man? Be sure to get over there and answer the poll, man. Let's see how y'all feel about that.
You're saying specifically what you mean by that is they're reframing the question of Iran's nuclear program in such a way, in Trump's mind, as him as their primary audience here, to essentially drive all the nuance out of what a uranium enrichment program is for and can be used for, and essentially get him to adopt the Israeli line that for them to have enrichment at all is the same thing as them having a nuclear weapons program, and even a very advanced one that must be stopped right now. And it was that framing being successful essentially over him is really what you're referring to when you say that he was pushed into this by the Israel lobby. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I mean, President Trump said Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. I think most people agree with that. And again, the Ayatollah, the former Ayatollah anyways, at least agreed with that. And so that was very dangerous for the Israelis because...
So the new Ayatollah released a picture today. I don't know, Chad. He might be dead too or hurt, man. They talking about he released a picture, man. Netanyahu and them put out 10 different AI videos and did a press conference, and we got the new Ayatollah just dropped, you know what I'm saying, a damn 4K picture. It's crazy.
That leveling of the playing field essentially brought both President Trump and the Iranians to the negotiating table. The Israelis feared President Trump being able to get a deal which could lead to some form of normalization with the Iranians. The Israelis have been very upfront. I really, frankly, don't think the Israelis care that much about Iran's nuclear weapons. What I think they care about, or not necessarily nuclear weapons, their enrichment, what I think the Israelis care about is regime change. And so they wanted to push this war as fast as they could. And so they came up with this talking point that zero enrichment was the starting point, knowing that that was a non-starter for the Iranians, because the Iranians were smart. They knew if they completely got rid of any kind of enrichment, that they would end up like Gaddafi in Libya. And they knew if they had to BS and say that they had a nuclear weapon, they'd end up like Saddam in Iraq. So they essentially have what I call the Goldilocks methodology, where they just said, hey, we have enough material here and the capability where we could develop a nuclear weapon, but we're not developing a nuclear weapon. So therefore, you can't just come push us around, but also you can't justify coming in because we have a nuclear weapon. And again, the Israelis wanted to take away any ability for there to be a negotiation because they wanted this regime change war that they can't do on their own. They need the might of the U.S. military.
Well, of course, Trump called that bluff against their latent deterrent last June. And I think, you can confirm this, I guess, from your former position here, but even from the open source material here, he very much did obliterate their program, took Natanz and Fordo and Isfahan virtually completely offline. Maybe they have a secret enrichment program somewhere, but probably not. Doesn't look like, any of that. So he called their bluff on that latent deterrent. So much good it did them after all that time, at least. But now, so let me ask you about the statements by Marco Rubio and others that the Israelis were threatening, we're going to start this war, and we know that it's going to lead to Iranian attacks against American interests and drag you in. So you might as well start the war with us, this kind of thing. And in a way, in a word, blackmailed America into launching the war. Is that your information as well?
I mean, Marco Rubio and the president and even Speaker House, I think others have now come out and said, well, we knew the Israelis were going to go, so we had to go. And so I think the question for every American, especially me in my former position, was like, well, who's in charge here? This is going to have massive consequences for the United States of America. We knew what the Iranians were going to do. We knew where their missiles were pointed. We basically knew what their contingency plans were. They were going to target bases in the region. Many of us have been advocating for years to limit our footprint in the CENTCOM region just for this very reason, because it gave the Iranians more leverage. We also knew, and I think the U.S. government has known for years, that the Iranians would try to shut down the Straits of Hormuz to impose economic costs. So my whole point was that if we're going to do this war, we cannot let the Israelis drive our timeline. We can't have our hands forced into this because the stakes are just so high.
Mm-hmm. All right, this episode of Scott Horton Show brought to you by the books I wrote, the 3 I wrote. In this case, it's Trump and his guys trying to do an end run around us, apparently, or at least that was the idea. But my point being that even though they didn't implement this plan, it seems to put the lie to the idea that Netanyahu is like the snarling pit bull that Trump could not hold on to his leash, rather than they bumped fists and decided to do this together.
From my perspective, there was just a lot of bad information coming from the Israeli side, particularly around that enrichment issue. Really just kind of convoluting the idea of zero enrichment and then the nukes as I described. And then I think as the Israelis got more and more nervous that President Trump may strike a deal again, he was deploying more diplomats. From my vantage point, the Israelis just decided to really force our hand and say, we're going to go do this. And it's going to happen next. You're going to be attacked. And to me, that is just, that was a red line for me. And I said, hey, I can't be a part of this.
Right now, I'm sorry to keep confronting you with like the silly stuff, but obviously you're a senior official who's resigned over a war. I mean, it's a huge thing. The attacks against you kind of are relentless. And you had mentioned, I believe it was in your resignation statement, but definitely you addressed this a bit in your Tucker Carlson interview, that there was an important role played by the Israel lobby in getting us into the Iraq war and into Obama's war in Syria as well, which obviously you have a lot of firsthand experience. I know I read that you were deployed 11 times. I interviewed you a few years ago. Forgive me, I forget if you had gone to Afghanistan as well. But I know you spent a lot of time in Iraq and Syria, right? And so, again, they want to say, well, this is an anti-Semitic blood libel from the Middle Ages or something. And so I just thought, like, maybe you have an actual explanation for what you meant by that.
Certainly. I mean, in the lead up to the 2002 declaration, or basically the 2002 portion, while it was being publicly debated whether or not we should go to war with Iraq, while the Iraq war was being sold to the American people, the Israeli lobby led by Benjamin Netanyahu at the time, who I believe, off the top of my head, was their finance minister, was over here in America heavily campaigning for us to go after Saddam Hussein, saying that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. The Israeli lobby, AIPAC, had these talking points in all of their different briefing books. So they were pressuring members of the House, members of the Senate, to support the war against Iraq. The Israelis had a lot of interest in Iraq. They obviously thought Saddam was a threat, but they were also concerned with being able to get some of the Iraqi oil for their own uses and their own interests. But also, they viewed Iraq as a staging point for Syria and, moreover, for Iran. I mean, the Israelis have been very, very, I think, straightforward on what they view as a threat, and they basically view the vast majority of the countries that surround them as a threat, some more so than others, but Syria, Iraq, and Iran were top of their list for quite some time. So and then also, of course, they didn't do it alone. It wasn't just the Israeli lobby. They had a lot of fellow travelers that were neoconservative. There's a lot of bleed over there. But the neoconservative movement, as you know, and I think most of your viewers know, they helped really sell the war to the American people, and then ultimately to the Bush administration. That launched us into Iraq.
I think
we basically screwed up Iraq so much that we kind of handed the keys to the kingdom over to the Shia majority, but not just the Shia majority. In particular, the best organized guys were the Badr Corps, the Supreme Council for Islamic Revolution in Iraq, who these guys had fought on the Iranian side of the Iraq-Iran war. So they were loyal to Tehran because of our own ignorance and then a lot of other lobbying by outside groups, these guys basically took power in Iraq. And so by the time we were leaving Iraq in 2011, it was evident that we had basically handed over Baghdad to the Iranians. And so the Israeli lobby said, "Hey, this is a major problem because now we basically have a Iranian superhighway, a land bridge that goes from Iran all the way into Syria through Iraq. This directly supports Hezbollah's efforts against Israel, so it was a major problem. And so we had basically tipped the balance of power in the region over to the Shiites. So then the dirty war in Syria was launched because Hafez Assad and Bashir al-Assad had always been longtime friends with the Iranians, supported the Iranians, helped support Hezbollah and Hamas from Syria. And so who do we rely on as our proxies inside of Syria? Well, it was by and large the Sunnis and the most radical elements of the Sunnis. There was the Free Syrian Army and there were some so-called moderates, but the guys who were out there and really aggressive against the Assad regime were members of Al-Qaeda and then eventually members of ISIS. ISIS got so out of control that we eventually had to go back into Iraq, back into Syria, largely re-empower a lot of the same Shiite militias that we were
No, this isn't live. This is from earlier today.
trying to take power away from in order to take out the ISIS caliphate.
Yeah, this video is from earlier today, nigga.
That's where I lost my late wife, was fighting the ISIS caliphate in 2018. But this is how really the goals of the Israeli government have driven a lot of our foreign policy in the Middle East. And so at the end of the day, I really think it's time for Americans to reflect on what are our vital national security interests in the region. And truly is the relationship that we have right now with this hyper-aggressive Likud-driven government inside Israel, is that worth it to us? Because now here we are, we're diving headlong into another war, and this may be the most consequential war in the Middle East that we fought in quite some time. Is it truly worth it? And I think if these facts are laid out to President Trump, and we have the ability for an off-ramp, we have the ability for negotiations, I think President Trump can get us out of this. But I think it's time for us to have these hard discussions, these hard conversations right now, and be truly objective about what our relationship is with Israel and what the American interests in the region truly are.
A point of clarification here. I believe it was in the Tucker Carlson interview.
Well, Trump already said he doesn't want to do a ceasefire. He also said that there's nobody left to negotiate with. All their leadership is gone. So I don't know what the off-ramp looks like.
I saw actually someone quote you critically here, but I thought maybe they misunderstood you. But I wanted to get a little clarification. At one point recently here, you had said that you had fought with Iranian-backed groups in the region. I think it was a little vague. So then I wondered, did that mean that you were part of the surge in 2007 against Sadr's forces in Iraq War II, or in the aftermath of Iraq War III against the Caliphate? I know that there are Iranian-backed militias that hit guys, but I think you were out of the service by then. But so I was wondering if you could clarify that, because I saw someone say, oh, this guy's saying that Al-Qaeda and ISIS are backed by Iran, but I know you're not saying that.
No. So I first deployed to Iraq in 2003. I missed the actual invasion. I was still in the Special Forces qualifications course. Got to Baghdad in the summer of 2003. And then I was in the Special Forces group as a Green Beret. And so basically every year from 2003 until 2011, I would be in Iraq for anywhere between 6 to 8 months at a given time. So I fought against the Iranian-backed militias of all varying stripes, but primarily Sadr's militia, Sabah Haq, Kata'ib al-Hezbollah, beginning in really 2004 in Najaf, and that's where we saw the Iranians come in heavily and support them. Members of the Quds Force fought them heavily in Sadr City. I was there in the surge. Pretty much throughout the country. Spent my time divided between fighting and hunting the Iranian-backed Shia militias, but then also the Al-Qaeda guys. Went back after the ISIS caliphate took over and fought between. I was in Baghdad for a little bit, but then was mostly up in Kirkuk, Mosul, that area, a little bit into Syria. So when I say I fought with, I guess you could take that either way. At the time in the counter ISIS fight, we essentially were acting as the Air Force, and our ground shock troops were the Shia militias, because at the time we had a common enemy. As that fight wound down, I was out of the service, but then my wife was killed in 2019. I left the CIA that I had transitioned to after I retired from the military in 2018. But that's when the Shia militias turned against our forces, and President Trump ultimately decided to retaliate by killing Qasem Soleimani.
All right. So, as I said, we've talked before, but it's been a few years and I don't remember. We might have even had an argument about this, or I don't know, but I want to bring it up because it is crucial. A major talking point against Iran is that they killed 600 of our guys in Iraq War II. And now clearly there was some Iranian support for Sadr. But then again, as you already described, the Supreme Islamic Council and the Dawa Party were much closer to Iran even than Sadr was. And it was really America's attacks against Sadr that drove him into Iran and drove him closer to Iran. But a huge part of this whole narrative then, especially at the hands of David Petraeus and Dick Cheney and Michael Gordon, then of the New York Times, now at the Wall Street Journal, was that Iran was responsible for every copper core EFP roadside bomb placed by any Shiite militiamen, especially in the first half of the year 2007. And as I show in my book, and I actually have them all here if you really want to squabble, I have report after report after report after report of these machine shops being found by American soldiers in Iraq, and these bombs being made by Iraqi Shiites for use against the United States, as opposed to the myth that every single one of these things somehow were all part of an Iranian plot. And really, it was Petraeus who had attacked Sadr rather than the other way around in 2007. But anyway, I wondered if you wanted to comment on that, because it is a real crucial talking point, equivalent to, essentially in the narrative, equivalent to the Beirut bombing of 1983 and the hostage crisis, or one of these things that proves that Iran is America's eternal.
See, right now, Chet, I'm just kind of watching this because it's a lot of information that I don't know. So that's why I'm not really pausing and giving as much commentary, because it's a lot that I don't know. I'm kind of watching it with y'all here.
Eternal enemy.
I think I'll kind of meet you halfway. So I was over there and I worked heavily on a small task force going after the EFP threat. So the idea of an EFP, it's not incredibly advanced. The Iranians just did the Quds Force just did a very good job of finding ways to manufacture them and employ them against our up armored technology and to beat our jammers.
Well, actually, Tucker came out and said that he was under investigation and that they were snatching his text messages. Then Joe Kent comes out and resigns, and it's all within the same couple days that shit happened.
And then also to punch through our armor. The Quds Force were kind of like my counterpart as a Green Beret. They were very good at training, manning, and equipping. And then what we would say as Green Berets is work yourself out of a job, train your proxy force so that in short order, they don't need you there anymore. And that's essentially what happened with the EFPs. So the initial EFPs that we found, they were being constructed inside of Iran. And I know exactly what you're talking about with the copper plating, because we did run ourselves in circles looking for like where the Iranians were storing all this mythical copper, and like were they smuggling the copper across the border. I think that was something of chasing ghosts, because really what the Quds Force did was they may have manufactured, I'm confident they manufactured the first run of the EFPs inside of Iran, and they probably tested them there as well. But they were able to take that technology, because it's pretty rudimentary, and then show Iraqis how they could basically build them in Iraqi machine shops, local machine shops in southern Iraq and Sadr City, et cetera. But largely the TTP, the tactic of the EFP, did come from the Iranians. As for the back and forth relationship that we have with Sadr, I think that if we would have been more deliberate about engaging with Sadr, especially after I've drawn a blank on the Imam. I think the Imam Khoei, somebody can check me because it's been a while since I thought of this. After he was killed when he returned from Iran, I think we could have made much more progress in kind of making an alliance with the more nationalistic Iraqi Shias, which is what Sadr represented, as opposed to, like you said, the Skiri and the Dawa branch that were much more beholden to Iran. But I do agree that Iran was responsible for, I'd say 600. I mean, I'm not sure exactly where they got that number from, but they were responsible for hundreds of casualties against the American forces. Now, again, should we have been there in the first place? Absolutely not.
You know, what happens is it's the narrative is basically pushed where you're supposed to just believe that every Iraqi Shiite militiaman was an Iranian, rather than an Iraqi Arab Shiite fighting under an Iraqi Arab Shiite militia. And, you know, as Gareth Porter showed, and maybe I'll follow up with you and show you this. Gareth Porter found where it was actually that they had learned it from, and I don't know exactly what you're referring to. Maybe you have facts on this that you could back it up. But Gareth showed where they learned it from Lebanese Hezbollah, not from Iran, and that Lebanese Hezbollah got it from the IRA, not from Iran. And that was kind of the origin of the technology of how, again, they're pretty simple bomb, but you have to hear the idea somewhere first to put the copper plate here, on the shape charge here kind of thing. And so apparently that was where it came from, according to Garrett's great journalism back then. But, and then I did kind of flash on the screen there a few different examples of these news stories. In fact, I'll go ahead and show you this one because the main ringleader in the media at the time, again, was Michael Gordon. He was the same guy who was the byline on every Judith Miller hoax story about the nuclear program in the New York Times in the run up to the war. Same guy. And yet here is his co-journalist from the New York Times, Alyssa Rubin, writing in the same paper. You see the day April 7th, 2007, right during the same time frame. And down here, she talks about how they found, I should have had it all highlighted, but here they go. They recovered an assembly area for powerful roadside bombs known as explosively formed penetrators. The statement said, in other words, the military told the New York Times that. So then, in other words, when they weren't pushing the Michael Gordon, David Petraeus, Dick Cheney narrative there, they kept having to admit that they kept stumbling across these machine shops. So you may be right that the idea came from Persia, but it sure seemed like what they were doing was trying their very best to conflate solder with the Ayatollah Khamenei in order to justify strikes inside Iran, which Bush ultimately refused to do.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, I mean, the whole time I was in Iraq, that was especially, I'd say, the surge years and on. It was that the Iranians were the main threat, and basically we needed to take the fight to them. So yeah, that line of thinking was very much at play, and I think it's something that we always missed, or we never really factored in, was that Iraq and Iran had fought a bitter war against each other, and the majority of Iraq was Shia. So the majority of Shias picked up a rifle, whether they wanted to or not, and they fought against the Iranians. And that was something that we never really wrapped our heads fully around, that there was a lot of nationalistic Iraqis who were not sympathetic with the Iranians until they had a horrible experience with foreigners coming in and invading their country and us trying to impose our will on them. So again, like, we never should have been there in the first place. We continued to get it wrong. And again, this is why I think a lot of our actions right now are completely and totally counterproductive. If we ever wanted to stabilize Iraq after we toppled Saddam, we immediately should have been working with guys like Sadr. We should have been working with the nationalistic Shias, and not played into the hands of the Iranians, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Ayatollahs. Much like right now, if our goal is to get rid of the Ayatollahs and the IRGC, the last thing we should be doing is killing off the Ayatollah, especially because that was the Ayatollah that had a prohibition on developing a nuclear weapon, but also because it's creating a rally around the flag type of scenario now, where you have Iranians who may have been out in the streets a month ago complaining about the cost of living and ready to overthrow their government from the ground up. And that might take a longer time, but it at least would have been organic. Whereas now that we've killed off the supreme leader, we're starting to kill off all the moderates. The hardliners' case is being vindicated, and the Iranian people are now digging in because they're prideful people, like most people are, like I would be, like probably you would be. And we're moving even further away from anything that would resemble like an organic regime change inside of Iran. So really just basically eliminating any kind of option that we would have other than the war option.
Mm-hmm. Damn.
Hey guys, I have another podcast now, right? Yeah, me. Iranian regime had to kill 30 to 50,000 people to get the other hundreds of thousands of them to finally quit and go home, or else surely they would have been overthrown any minute, when that's just completely ridiculous. And if it was only 3,000 killed and they were the vanguard of a protest movement that made up, a few tens of thousands of people, then that would not indicate that the Iranian regime is so brittle and is ready to fall. But if you really believe that they had to kill 30 to 50,000 people in some like Battle of the Somme sized massacre in order to cling to power in January, then you might have believed Netanyahu that you can just, give them a flick and they'll fall right over by the end of February.
I mean, in war, the first casualty is always the truth, and I'm always skeptical of like any kind of numbers coming out of a conflict zone. From my former vantage point, it was hard to know which number was accurate. I share your skepticism in the larger numbers, but what I do know from my past experience and just pattern recognition, anytime we launch a war, even if it sounds like it's under noble auspices, like we did in Libya with the responsibility to protect doctrine that the Clintons and Samantha Power were so fond of, saying, hey, we have to go in with military force to topple this regime to save the people. It sounds noble, but it always ends up in the same catastrophe that regime change driven by the Americans results in. So, look, I was very skeptical at the time, but we need to go in and save the protest movement. I was always of the mindset that, look, if this protest movement is going to be real and they're truly going to drive this current regime from power, they've got to do it on their own for it to actually for it to really resonate and be a real lasting thing. If we want to make sure that the protest movement fails, is we go in there and we say, hey, we're the Americans, we're here to back the protesters against the government. That just does not work for us, especially in the Middle East.
Mhm. Okay, now, can you tell us what's your best assessment of the state of the negotiations before the war and whether they really could have been successful?
I think the biggest chance that we had was before the 12-day war and before Midnight Hammer. I personally believe that Steve Witkoff and the folks working with him and then his Iranian counterparts, I think they were close to a deal. That's just my opinion. I wasn't involved in the deal making. I don't want to portray it as that. My opinion of that, though, was that those talks were going very well. They were continuing to meet. There were they're having real discussions on enrichment. And again, this is where the idea that no enrichment was our red line, that's where I saw the echo chamber that I alluded to in my resignation letter. That's where I really saw that go to work between members of the media and then Israeli officials coming in and basically saying, no, but you said, no enrichment, which is complete and total nonsense. So I think there was a potential for a deal there. Obviously, the 12-day war, Midnight Hammer, set back the potential of the deal. But the Iranians are very, very calculated. And when they retaliated for Operation Midnight Hammer, they did it in a very, very calculated way. They shot back an equal number of missiles that we dropped as bombs. And so that signaled to us that, hey, they were still interested in actually cutting a deal. And again, this is what the Israelis feared, because they knew that President Trump and his negotiating team probably could get a deal, because you had the Iranians willing to go back to the table, holding their self-imposed prohibition on developing a nuclear weapon and just saying, hey, like, we just want to have a conversation about enrichment. When we were having a conversation about enrichment, I think there was a real potential for a deal there. And that's why we had the Israelis come in full court press with the echo chamber and say, no, we have to go now. They're going to develop a nuclear weapon. They're developing ballistic missiles that could reach America. They were just throwing anything at the wall to see what would stick. And then to force our hand to say, hey, we're going to go right now. And if we go, they're going to hit you guys back. So that's where I saw a lot of the negotiating space get taken away and kill any potential for a deal. But Scott, I think right now there is a potential still for a deal. And I think only Donald Trump can do it. I think he's got to address the Israeli issue first and foremost and demand and force them to stop going on the offense. I know he sent out a truth social last night saying just that, to stop bombing the energy sector. My opinion, my advice to him, if you would take it, is that, look, we have enough data on how the Israelis behave. If you tell them that they need to stop bombing this target or that target, they might back off for a week or so, but they're not going to listen to you. You have to take away their ability to do that. You have to take away some feature of their defense system to say, hey, look, we're going to take away a feature of your defense system, and we're not going to support you while you're on the offense. If you go completely back on the defense, we will support you. But until we take something away from the Israelis, they will not listen to us. If President Trump addresses that first, that will give him the space to reach a deal. And we already saw him today through his commerce secretary talking about lifting the sanctions on some of the Iranian oil that's already on the water. And so I pray that we're actually moving in that direction. But I think the timing is crucial. I think we have a lot of potential right now to get that deal.
Yeah, I mean, politically, that would be a huge climb down for him to have to overtly restrain the Israelis as part of probably even an official negotiation with Iran. I mean, I agree with you that he should seek peace at almost any cost anyway. But politically speaking, what you're really saying is, boy, did he already jump into the deep end of this ocean. And where he cannot touch the bottom. And how is he going to get himself out of this thing without something like that, where he's implicitly saying, boy, we just shouldn't have done that, or whatever, call it victory now. But if Israel's still in a position to force the war to continue on, and they're willing to without him absolutely putting his foot down, then that really goes to show that the best he can do, the best he is doing, is calling time out rather than actually achieving any kind of success, much less victory, like David Petraeus would say.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental issue is restraining Israel. And until we do that, we may be able to buy some time, but we'll be right back in the same situation all over again. So that's why I say we have to actually be pretty forceful with them and just say, look, we're paying for the majority of your defense. We will not pay for you to go on offense. We have a different strategic goal than they do. Like right now, we share some tactical objectives. Like we've said that we want to take down their ballistics, we want to take out their Navy, et cetera. And the Iranians or the Israelis are on board with that. But beyond that, that's where our interests go in completely divergent paths. The Israelis want full regime change, and the Israelis have a very high tolerance for chaos. Like they're completely okay destroying that whole system over there and having a chaotic situation where the Straits of Hormuz is still in jeopardy, where potentially there's mass migration, where you have different fractionalizations inside of Iran that destabilizes the region, but poses less of a threat to Israel. The Israelis are fine with that. We are not. That would be absolutely catastrophic for us, for our partners, our allies in the GCC states, potentially even in Europe, and then also for the world energy trade. So the stakes are very, very high from our strategic objective standpoint. And so to let the Israelis continue to essentially call the shots and drive the ferocity and the strategic objectives of the battle, that is not doing any service for the American people. And I think as soon as President Trump can realize that and use his force that only President Trump has to restrain the Israelis, we're going to continue to be in this cycle.
Now, do you think that Plan A was to parachute the monarch Reza Pahlavi, the grandson, in there, or it was really the Israeli goal was just convince Trump to get it started, and the plan is destroy Persia?
Yeah.
The Israelis were big fans of throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick. So I think at some point in time they probably briefed like the monarch's son or the MEK or the Kurds, or et cetera, et cetera. But really, at the end of the day, the Israeli goal was to get in there and hammer the regime, kill the supreme leader. And killing the supreme leader, I think, was twofold. I mean, basically, it killed the guy that was restraining the nuclear program. And so now there's a more compelling case to make that, hey, look, if they have anything that even resembles any kind of enrichment or any nuclear, component, they're going to make a bomb. Because actually, probably now they will, because we killed the one restrainer. Actually, we killed several of the restrainers. I say we, I mean between us and the Israelis, we will all be blamed for it. But really, the entire Israeli goal was just to launch this to topple the regime at any cost, because they know the time is short. They know that they're losing a lot of support on both sides of the aisle in America. And so for them, timing was of the essence, and they basically work out the details later. Get us deeply entrenched in this thing as fast as they can. And after that, they basically met their main strategic objective. Everything else is just a matter of getting us to stay committed to the fight.
Yeah. Hey guys, Scott here for Mundo's Artisan Coffees. It's the Scott Horton Show flavored coffee breakfast blend. It's part Ethiopian, part Somali. Of 70,000 plus people in that war, it seems like Americans must be, greatly susceptible to this kind of terrorism. And then now add on top of that, the Shiites who, Trump and I guess Israel assassinated not just their political leader, but one of their highest ranking religious leaders in the world, in the Ayatollah Khamenei. And I know Sistani so far has not issued a fatwa against us all, but if people think of like the fatwa against Salman Rushdie, where they said kill this author, well, what did not do then was do that to all of us. There was just that one guy, right? But they could do that. Sistani could say all true believers fight, and we would have a whole new fight on our hands. So can you please address, don't get yourself thrown in prison for telling me secrets or anything, but tell me about how justified is my paranoia about bin Ladenite terrorism in this country right now? And then also please add on top of that, any worries about Shiite terrorism in this country. And, there are kind of oftentimes in right-wing media rumors about Hezbollah sleeper cells and that kind of thing, but that's not impossible. So I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I would say you're right. The bin Ladenite Salafi Wahhabists, Unfortunately, because we're so consumed right now with this war in Iran, there's several places where they are, predominantly, I would say, in Yemen. Also, what's taking place in Syria needs to be monitored. But we're not paying as much attention to those areas as we should be. And we have active Al Qaeda cells, active Al Qaeda organizations there that are very threatening. And they exist solely, especially in Yemen, AQAP exists solely to attack the homeland. And they don't do that by infiltrating covert cells anymore. That, to my knowledge, what they do is they reach out and they inspire. I'm lucky as Inspire magazine, but they're using social media as a way to reach out and to inspire people. The majority of the terror attacks that we had last year, they were not done by someone who had traveled overseas and then come here to attack us in some sort of a sleeper cell. They were inspired to action. Most of them cited what was taking place in Gaza, because a lot of the propaganda coming out of Gaza, a lot of the media coming out of Gaza was just so graphic and inspired people to action. And they actually cited that in their manifestos or their last wills, whatever you want to call them. So that is very concerning. And that, combined with the wide open border that we had under the previous administration, we frankly just don't know who came into our country over the last 4 years. I publicly testified that we had identified a potential 18,000 known suspected terrorists who had gained access to the country. Basically, the further we dug into the books of what took place with immigration over the last 4 years, I realized, like, the less we knew, there just wasn't any accurate data. There was limited amounts. I shouldn't say there wasn't any, but there was limited amounts of accurate data. But that wide open border just presents such a potential for actual radicals to infiltrate our country, and then at the time and place they're choosing to carry out attacks. But then in terms of blowback terrorism, I think we've already started to see it. In the last 2 weeks, we've had several terror attacks here at home that they appear right now to have been inspired by what was taking place in Iran. As you indicated, we took out an Iranian Shia cleric, the Ayatollah. For many, he was the number one. He was essentially their version of the Pope. We took him out. The Israelis killed him. President Trump said that, hey, we were a part of doing that as well. So I think there is a high potential for blowback terrorism. And again, while most of our resources are focused right now on the fight in the Persian Gulf and against Iran and in that region, we are kind of taking our eye off the ball on the threats to the homeland that we should be focused on. So there is a lot to be concerned with there. I think we've got our work cut out for us here at the homeland. I think that's where our focus should be, not on picking new fights overseas. And I think your overall point, I've heard you make this many times. I think it's very accurate. Just the amount of blowback terror that we receive because of our support for the state of Israel. That's got to be addressed as well, too. And at the end of the day, it's not really about any love or affinity for anyone. It's like, hey, is this relationship worth it at the end of the day? Are we getting more than we're having to pay a cost for? I think that's worth discussing.
Yeah. On the first day of the war, a terrorist went and killed 3 innocent people drinking at the bar in my hometown, Austin, Texas, wounded 15 more.
Yeah.
And he just happened to pick a spot where there's cops everywhere. So they were able to corner him. But, you know better than me as a former special operator and whatever, but any man could tell you it'd be really easy for any man to kill a lot of people if he's willing to die trying. And there's this entire nation from Bangor to Bangor there is a lot of soft targets of innocent civilians standing around everywhere. The only way to protect us from terrorism is to not do this kind of thing over there and not motivate. And I'm not saying, yes, we should have open borders. We certainly should not be bringing these people into our country, potential terrorists into our country. The guy that attacked the synagogue the other day, they say that he was brothers with a Hezbollah guy. I don't know if that's really true, but if that is true, he should have never been allowed in the country in the first place. And they absolutely, as Ron Paul said, if they ignored the danger, then they're putting the people of this country in peril. They think they can just go around and do this stuff and that there won't be consequences, because there absolutely will too. And now, I'm sorry, I know you got to go and I'm almost up at the time wall here too, but I have to ask you really quick about these alleged Iranian assassination attempts against Donald Trump. And my friend Ken Silva is a great reporter, and he's already shown that these are complete nonsense. But then again, that was your job up there. So can you tell us whether it's really true that the Ayatollah put out a hit on Donald Trump leading up to this war?
After President Trump killed Qasem Soleimani, the Iranians were pretty vocal that they wanted to have vengeance for President Trump killing Qasem Soleimani. So there was a legitimate threat. Now, in terms of how much resources the Iranians put behind it, that's up for debate. So far, all we found is the trial that of Asif Merchant that Silva covered. I think he did a great job of covering it. So Asif Merchant was recruited by the Iranians, came over to America. We learned about it ahead of time. So by the time he even got into America, the FBI basically put him under surveillance and was able to have a confidential human source go befriend him. And so as Merchant was planning this assassination against President Trump, kind of in a kind of clownish way, but still, you have to still have to take it seriously. He was planning it under the FBI's control, essentially. I think that should be looked at. That trial's done. Ken Silva's done a good job of covering it. Merchant was arrested just 2 days before the assassination attempt in Butler. And according to the FBI, the two events aren't linked. Again, as I discussed last night on Tucker's show, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. If we've done our due diligence to truly see if there was any linkage between what Merchant had cooking and then also Thomas Crooks and everything that took place there. The DHS IG has been blocked from investigating what's taking place in Butler. So I think there's still a lot more work to do there, a lot of unanswered questions. But that was about the most serious threat against the president's life that I had seen. But there was a very real. The Iranians did threaten to kill President Trump. That was real. The Iranians did seek to avenge Qasem Soleimani. Qasem Soleimani was a hero to the Iranian regime and also to a lot of the Iranian people. So that part was real. Again, the amount of resources they dedicated to it is kind of unknown. So far, all we can put our finger on is Merchant.
And even the threat, it was not. Was it equivalent to like the fatwa against Rushdie?
I don't believe there was ever a fatwa. I'd have to go back and check. I'm sure someone can research that, but I to my knowledge, there was not a fatwa. There was lots of just kind of internet smack talking about they were going to kill him. But I mean, they did recruit a guy and send him over here. So I think you have to take those threats very, very seriously because the Iranians have tried to kill. They tried to kill the Saudi ambassador in Georgetown before. That was a pretty serious plot that they had.
Yeah, that one was fake too.
You think that was fake too?
Yeah, I think we all got to look real close at Ken Silva's. First of all, on the recent story here on the timeline of who was recruited by who, when, and who started telling what to which informants and all that. We should be really skeptical. And then now the one against the ambassador in the Obama years, that was fake. The guy was the absent-minded car salesman from Corpus Christi who couldn't find his car keys and was like caught on a phone call with Hezbollah drug dealers, and they just embellished it into this plot. When that ambassador wasn't even a member of the royal family, he was some kind of lackey. There's no real point in them. And then supposedly this guy was going to blow up a restaurant or whatever. I think the whole thing fell apart once Gareth Borders started looking at it, as many of these stories often do.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at that one, so I'll take your word for it. It's been a minute.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Thank you. Congratulations, and thank you for doing the right thing and standing on principle and resigning over this war. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to ask you about the choice to stay and make it less worse or go ahead and stand on principle. I know it was a difficult one for you, and you're going to face a lot of heat even going forward here, but you obviously did the right thing, and I really appreciate it and appreciate your time on the show, Joe.
Absolutely, Scott. Thank you so much.
This is Scott Horton.
All right, chat. That was the end of that, man. We finna get up out of here, chat. I'm tired. I don't want to go to sleep in here on camera in front of y'all people, man. I'm just gonna be honest with you. So I'm finna go to bed, and we will be back tomorrow night, man. I welcome all the new subscribers. Be sure to double tap the screen on your way out or hit the like button at the top. And we had a good night, chat. Excellent stream, excellent mods, excellent chat. I hope to see y'all on the next one, chat. We'll be back tomorrow.